Hail to the Geeky Geezers and Netters Network. Yes, I agree.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, welcome everybody to Geeky Geezers. Thank you. I figured I was going to lead with that. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Geeky Geezers. I'm your host, Aged Boomer. My co-host, PaPa Pacelli.
Howdy.
And it was funny because Troy was like, how you feeling? And I said, I'm feeling fine. I had this horrible cough into the mic.
Like you don't sound so fine.
No, I caught a little bug or something that, or it's my allergy. Of course, it could be something else, but hopefully
Well,
it's
I
not
was
that.
telling you, I'd been feeling out of it for a while. Netter completely lost her voice for a couple weeks there. I mean,
Okay.
But,
I just got a little frog in my throat, but I should be okay tonight. But how is everybody? Let me say hi to the chat. I believe Big Al was first.
yeah, Netter says honey helps.
Honey helps.
Yeah.
I'll keep that in mind. Thank you. Agent, Networks. Netters Network says hi, sweetie, to me. Thank you. D Penzek again. Thank you. And Daniel Heron.
Did you miss Big Al? He was first.
I think I said Big Al, but yeah.
Oh, maybe. Okay.
Have a fun show, you geezers.
Yep.
I don't know. I are we the geezers or is everybody else the geezer?
Yeah, no, we're the geezers.
Okay.
Yeah, most of our chat tends to be younger than we are.
I'm starting to wonder.
I think the only ones in chat that are older than me is Netter and Big Al. Everyone else is younger than me.
If anyone in the chat is like 20s, maybe even early 30s, I don't know if we go that young. Are you excited about Metaverse or curious at least? I need to know. I don't know if this really is a thing that people are interested in or if it's just a bunch of BS, but
yeah, we'll get into that a little bit. I know about it very tangentially.
Deleted Scenes, welcome. Deleted Scene has his own show on, I guess, his own channel. Subscribe.
Yes,
and I believe he does a Saturday morning stream called Saturday Morning Cereal.
Yep.
Actually, Deleted Scenes, what's your favorite Saturday morning cereal? I'm kind of curious.
Fruit Loops.
That's a good cereal. I have to say, remember the Twin Peaks revival series and Jim Belushi and the other casino owners that may or may not have had mob connections, hint, hint.
Exactly.
And there's one scene where they're all eating breakfast and it's all cereal.
Yeah.
And they're eating like the cornflakes and they're chewing. And I'm thinking while watching them, cereal can be kind of a pain in the butt sometimes to eat. It's like you're kind of eating it and just crunch.
It's definitely not the kind of thing that you can eat on the run. I mean, the individual boxes are made with that wax paper that you're supposed to be able to, use on a camping trip or whatever, but it's not the easiest thing in the world. It really isn't.
It isn't. It's funny. I remember there was a made-for-TV movie about the life of Alexander Graham Bell, and his servant brings him breakfast in the morning, and he brings him, and he says, "What is this?" And he says, "It's cornflakes. It's new. Bring me some bacon and eggs." He got really angry. I didn't know what that was.
Well, the story behind cornflakes, right?
It was the Quakers, right?
No.
Or Shakers.
It was what's his name? Kellogg, who was kind of a loop. He was kind of into eugenics and he was into all kinds of weird health stuff. He had this belief that anything that was he may have had Quaker ties. Now that you mention it, I don't know about.
I don't know. It could have been a different group.
He had some similar beliefs that any kind of vices were like bad for you. So heavy foods were bad for you, and it led to degradation and whatever. And I mean, like purity, like keeping yourself pure.
Okay.
So there was a certain Jewish tradition for young men that he felt needed to be universal because that might help in that purity regard. Okay. And cornflakes was apparently part of this bland diet that he felt people should have that would keep people, in quotes, pure. I'm being very, very cryptic here. You can go do your own reresearch about this. It was really weird stuff.
They should do a movie about him sometime.
Didn't they talk about him a little bit in The Road to Wellness?
Maybe I should watch that.
Yeah.
Thank you for the cough killer recipe. I'll look into that, Netter. Used to be Cheerios, but I switched to cornflakes. Okay. I wonder what Kellogg would have thought of Frosted Flakes.
He
Pro-
wouldn't have liked it. He did.
Probably, I can imagine him having an argument with his grandson.
Bland was what was appropriate, and extra sugar was not a healthy thing in his opinion.
I'm imagining some nasty
Right,
fight
Big
with
Al
Grandpa
said
Kellogg,
Wellville, yeah.
with Grandpa Kellogg yelling at his grandson who's introducing cornflakes onto the market. It's just I don't know. Anyway.
Oh yeah, David said History Channel had a good series on the man who started the food industry, Kellogg's Post, etc. Yeah. So,
I always like Kellogg's Raisin Bran the best because the raisins are shrunk and have sugar on them. And some, I guess you could argue that's worse, but they remind me of my childhood.
I got to be honest with you. When it came to Raisin Bran, I didn't care for any of the packaged ones.
Right.
I used to go out and just get straight bran flakes and put my own
raisins on them.
But I'd put like so many raisins. It was like mostly raisins with just a little bit of bran flakes scattered in. I don't know. I considered it healthy.
The film stars Anthony Hopkins as Dr. Kellogg. I am now seeking this movie out because that I have to see now.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Zootopia High Netter. Okay. Welcome, Zootopia.
All right. Everyone's saying all the highs.
What you sipping on tonight, by the way?
Diet Cherry Coke.
I have a regular Coke.
Oh, the strong stuff tonight.
Nothing frilly. I'm not having. I do have regular Cherry Coke in the fridge too. I'm having a regular Coke right now.
There you go.
Coke is good when you're a little off, right? So
it's usually
that or
good
ginger ale. Ginger ale is good too, but
the syrup used to be used as a cough syrup, and actually it kind of works that way. It's not bad.
So here we go. Oh, we're going to talk about the good old days.
Yes, we were. Tell me about the good old days. What are we talking about today?
Well, I will say, as Max World Entertainment always says, if he shows up in our chat, greetings, programs.
Greetings, programs.
We are going to talk about TRON.
I love that movie. Gosh. Disney film. That's a Disney film.
It's an amazing Disney film. When this movie came out, Disney did not have the best reputation at the time. Critics were thinking a lot of their movies were dogs. They were not giving them good reviews. And then TRON came out, and TRON wowed everybody. Yeah. And the only reason I could think TRON I think it still did well for the studio, especially at that time, but it came out in the summer of 1982, so it was up against things like E.T., the Extraterrestrial. It was up against Conan the Barbarian. I think Secret of NIMH, that was the summer of 82. We had Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner. That was summer of 82. That was an insane summer of just high quality movies, one after the other. And TRON, though, it's funny. I didn't see it in the theaters when I was a kid. I don't know if you had. Did you see it in the movie theaters?
I did.
Oh, wow.
That summer, I think I saw most of those movies in the theater, specifically because I was spending the summer with my grandparents in Ohio, and every Wednesday my grandparents got the day off, and I said, given a choice of things to do on a Wednesday afternoon, I'd love to go to see some of the summer films. And that's where we saw a lot of them. I do remember. And that was also that time for me when I was, video games were really popular.
Yes.
Whenever I'd go out to lunch with my grandmother, she'd give me a few quarters to go play Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and
Space Invaders.
That was was the big one that I really, really enjoyed. So when TRON came out, this idea of going into the video game, right? Yeah. This idea that the characters you were playing in the video game were sentient creatures that, were being controlled by us, the gods, so to speak.
Yes.
I thought was really, really interesting. And, but yeah, the other thing was the animation that Disney came up with. That was back when they were still, pushing that cutting edge, and they drew a little bit from the special effects that were pioneered in 78 with Superman. The reflective material on the Kryptonian costumes, that was something that they drew on as they were doing their lighting effects on those costumes. And of course, the very, very what we would consider very, very simple computer graphics. So just the same sort of idea of all of their live action with animation features that they've done for many years, but now they were doing it with computer graphics.
And keep in mind, this was fairly early computer
Yes, it
graphics, but it
was.
still looks amazing today. In fact, I do kind of miss how when in the old days when you had to work within limitations with computer graphics, you had to kind of think around what
Yeah.
you had the ability to do. It was fascinating what they were able to accomplish with this movie. What's the movie about, though? Maybe we should go into that a little bit, though.
So it's, well, clearly
I can tell you. Go ahead.
it's clearly a science fiction story, but it combines what now we consider to be very common genres of sci-fi, but back then not so much. They pulled in this idea of the sentient computer,
Yep.
The computer scape, so to speak, alternate worlds on a quantum level, and teleportation used as a means between those worlds.
Yes.
That was actually quite genius. And in fact, I feel like that's a story element that was way overlooked, not only in the original Tron, but in the Tron sequel. It's like, did no one pay attention to the fact that someone was working on a teleportation device that actually worked? Why is that not more of a thing in the story?
Oh, right, because they do it with an orange first, right? I
Exactly.
think that's what they do, because that's another part of the company. So here's the main plot. You have Jeff Bridges, young Jeff Bridges is in it. He plays Kevin Flynn, who's this genius computer programmer, and he made a bunch of video games. I don't know if he did this while he was working for the company or on his own time. But the trouble was the executive vice president, Ed Dillinger, who was played by the great David Warner, who is known for playing villains all the time in movies. I guess he gets Kevin Flynn fired and steals all of his hit video game ideas and turns them into hit arcade games. And of course, the company makes millions off of it, and he takes the credit for them. So Kevin Flynn's angry. He wants to get in there and find out, get the proof that I'm the one that created these games and I'm owed royalties on them and other things. Because at the moment, he's just running a video game arcade, which, there are worse things in this world. He seemed to be doing okay doing that business, but he wants he wants to get the credit due to what he did. And Bruce Boxleitner works at the company, and he plays. Hold on, give me a second. He plays because everybody has a dual role in this, but he plays Alan Bradley, who created a security program for the computer company, and that security program's name was Tron.
No,
Tron.
Tron. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, the Master Control program. That was
the one that takes his form, right?
Yeah, that's David Warner's alternate, and that's a very nasty piece of work. That's almost like the AI. I mean, you could argue all these programs are AI after a fashion. Anyway, Kevin Flynn, he goes over there. He's investigating. He wants to find the proof that he created these games. The Master Control program doesn't like him poking around, so he turns on the transporter machine and transports Kevin Flynn inside the computer system, the mainframe computer. Right.
And I always conceptualize that as the master computer or master control wasn't actually trying to bring him into the computer. But what happens when you digitize something? The first half of the teleportation process is to scan it all into digital information.
Yeah.
Once you become digital information, where are you? But you are on the digital landscape.
Yes. And it's amazing when he's falling into it and you see all of you yourself are being transported to the computer world. I can only imagine what that would have been like to see on the big screen.
It was pretty cool, let me tell you. You almost you could feel yourself because he's being taken apart and those little parts are flying into the teleportation thing, and you're like, wow, that's horrific.
He shows up in the computer and their computer programming is yelling at him, calling him program and stuff. And he's like, I'm dreaming. This is a bad dream, right? He doesn't. And of course, he realizes he's stuck in the computer, and he has to figure a way out. He has to befriend Tron, which is the security program, and stop the Master Control program, who has eyes on taking over military computers. Remember, that was a thing he was interested in. So, of course, it's not just he just doesn't have an interest in his little mainframe, his computer world. He wants to do stuff in the real world too, the Master Control program. So, together they have to work to stop the MVP. And there's chases, there's the light cycle races. And the funny thing was, Light Cycles was one of the games that Kevin Flynn created, but here it's being used in like a gladiatorial thing where like they'll take an accounting program and put him in the disc fighting game, right? And the accounting
Right.
program's like, I'm an accounting program. I don't know how to play these video games,
Exactly.
because he's a program that works for an accountant on the accountant's computer, and it's. I am going to say this. Back in the '80s, this is how people kind of saw computers. At least that's how I saw computers as a kid. What goes on inside the computer? What
Right.
goes on in those circuit boards? It's all dark and it's light and it's. In fact, I think the creators of this movie wanted to make a movie that was painted with light. That's what they said.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's entirely what they did. But David brings up a great point too, and that's the soundtrack. That very
Yes.
synthetic, electronic, incredible music, you know. And as far as the music goes, that's what really drew me to the video game. So they made a tie-in video game that incorporated different elements of the film into game format, including the light cycles and breaking into the master control tower, with the little spiders and whatnot. And that was the music from the film. It was really, really cool. But it's a shame they kind of missed their opportunity. They could have called it Space Paranoids, which was, of course, the game that Flynn was, trying to prove he had
Trying to prove he
created.
created. I assume was some version of Space Invaders or something along those lines. Maybe,
There,
right?
somebody created a Space Paranoids and had it available online, but you need an emulator to run it. And I've tried, and I'm just not clever enough to figure out how to work the emulator, so it doesn't quite work out. But oh well.
There's a wonderful old school review. You can watch it from Siskel and Ebert, and Siskel's explaining the movie, and then he goes, "Do you know what Tron is? Tron is neat." That's what he said. That was
Oh,
the word
that's
he used to
cool.
describe was neat. And then Roger Ebert went on to describe, I watch movies to go to places I've never been before. Tron took me to worlds I never knew existed. That's what he
Yeah,
said in his review.
yeah, that's a great
And
way to
he
put it.
made some point in his written review, like, eventually movies will be made with all digital landscapes made in the computer. And I'm thinking, well, you had no idea how right you were back in
Yeah.
the day. Uh,
But
it's a
it really is true. I mean, you see, 2 points make a line, right? And when you see what's possible and you know what's likely to happen with entertainment, you go, there's only one path this could possibly take. And this is why I've been telling you all along, Aged Boomer, this idea of, digitizing people's faces and all this kind of stuff, aging down, aging up in the computer and stuff. It's ultimately going to happen. Not to mention that now we have the ability to save people's voices and synthesize their voices as well. I don't know if Paramount is still doing this, if they even care enough about legacy Star Trek to do this, but they have the entire library of audio from Majel Barrett. She recorded everything she needed to record so that all of the phonemes of the English language exist in her voice for them to replicate any dialogue they want of her as the Enterprise computer.
Hey, well, unless this is part of those, we only own 7/10 of Star Trek, and that isn't one of them.
Well, yeah,
Because of secret hideout. Yeah, they should
I'm
bring
just
back that for
talking
the
about
computers. Yeah,
what is possible. Drawing this back to Siskel and Ebert, though,
yeah.
I know that when Ebert had his
He lost his voice.
he
Yeah, he
lost
had
his
cancer. Yeah,
well, he lost his whole lower jaw. He lost
awful.
all ability
Yeah,
to speak.
yeah.
So he was able to speak using a computer, and they were trying to hook him up with by taking audio from his years, in broadcast, trying to synthesize his voice. It wasn't that great because there's a difference between recording exact sounds that are necessary as clean audio. And what you do is you sit down and you read. Sometimes you read full words, sometimes you read just sounds, and you do it over and over again. And then the computer can take those and apply them to typed text. Actually, you may not realize this, but that's what your Echo Dot and Siri and all of those do. Whoever the voice actress is has recorded all of this, sound in order to make voices that sound pretty natural to you. But anyway,
Tron was deemed ineligible for the visual effects category at the Oscars because it is considered too reliant on CGI. Now everything is CGI. The Thing wasn't nominated either. The Thing has the best special effects I've ever seen in a movie, but whatever.
Well, I see, and it was back then that a lot of people in the industry even started to say the Academy has no idea what they're talking about.
No,
they're not thinking critically. And I think a lot of people say the same thing about our justice system not keeping up with technology, and not thinking through,
yes.
I mean, and we've any reasonable person has looked at laws and said, look, everything that applies to the written word, everything that applies to newspapers, everything that applies to speech, everything that all applies to all the same technology that exists today. Just because it's a computer format instead of a typewriter, it's, just treat it the same way. You don't have to overthink this. Unfortunately, every time a new medium comes out, the law acts like we have no idea how to deal with this. And it's the same thing with the Academy and, sound and sound engineering and digital and all this kind of stuff. Every time something new comes up that revolutionizes, that really ought to be recognized with awards and accolades, no, sorry, that's not covered by what we understand. So
Ridiculous.
it's and that's just one symptom of why the Academy Awards is completely irrelevant at this point.
Yeah, I could go on about some things voters were saying many years ago, like when they were voting the effects category, and one of the voters says, "I don't really pay attention to special effects." Well, you're voting in the category, so maybe pay attention. That's what I wanted to say.
That's exactly it. And I know that there's been a couple times here on this topic we've gotten off topic. That tells you something about Tron, right?
Yeah.
It was so revolutionary, so on the cutting edge, that it's almost impossible to talk about without going off on tangents because of so many things. So many ways it impacted film and entertainment, and even just the way we think about computers and gaming.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've heard people got involved in computer programming because of Tron, even later on Tron Legacy, because they were very into. They were amazed by what they saw.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and for better or for worse, we're going to be talking about some things related to gaming and whatnot and technology that one could really tie back to Tron in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny that you mentioned the whole digitized voice thing. Did you know that Val Kilmer's voice had to be dubbed in using digital archives of his voice?
I have not yet seen it, but I suspected that's exactly what they were gonna do, and that's probably an example of exactly what I was talking about. Yeah. However, again, this was probably them taking digitized samples from his previous films and whatnot, because he probably did not previously purposely record himself for this purpose. It's the kind of thing that you don't think about until after you have an accident or illness that robs you of your voice, and it's like, well, now it's too late.
Yep. But yeah, I do feel bad for him, but it's I'm glad they were able to figure out a way around that, though, right, for the movie. I mean,
yeah.
Hot take. Delia Sains. I didn't like Tron Legacy. I went in one ear and out the other with me. I couldn't tell you what it was about. The original still masterpiece. I don't know. Here's the thing. Did you see Tron Legacy?
I did. I absolutely did. Saw it opening week.
I saw it a little while later. I didn't see it in 3D. Of course, I heard from what people I heard who saw the 3D version, it was almost jarring to watch in 3D. That's what I had heard. I watched
modern 3D films I have not really enjoyed.
So I watched it standard. People are mixed on it. Some people like Tron Legacy, some people didn't. I've grown to really appreciate it over the years. I do think the effects in it are amazing. It was, and the trouble was, it's one of these movies that had to serve as both a sequel and a reboot, right?
Yeah, yeah.
what we call a requel now, if I'm going
Yeah.
by the new Scream movies thing.
Sure.
So
That
has to
works.
introduce this to people who've never seen the original Tron, but at the same time also serve as a sequel. I think if you watch the animated series Tron Uprising, Tron Legacy is a much better movie. You get to find out a lot more about the politics. Of course,
Cameron Pasha worked on that.
yeah, no, that was an amazing cartoon series Disney put on, which of course they canceled before they finished the story.
I can probably speak to what deleted scenes is
Right.
saying there. Or no, I'm sorry. Was it deleted scenes who
It
was
was
saying
deleted
he
scenes,
didn't?
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
You could not like it. It's
I
okay.
got to back up. Unfortunately, it's exactly what Aged Boomer said. I'm going to take it even further and extrapolate it to it was a transitional film. Okay.
Yeah.
It was a sequel. It was a introductory film to what was meant to be more films.
Yep.
So it was kind of a sequel / prologue. It wasn't, I felt, a good standalone film. It was like reading the prequel or not prequel, the prologue of a novel and going,
Right.
okay, let's get into this. And
Yeah.
if that's all you have, you're like, well, that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate, takeaway here. It was a good way to bring you up to date with those characters and the situation, set the stage for something, but then we're left hanging. We never got where
We
they were
never
going
got,
with
because
it.
they left off with some very interesting things. For starters, the villain in the movie Tron Legacy, it's Clue, which is Jeff Bridges, basically his program, his doppelganger. And what's cool is you have Clue in there. And back then, it was that weird Uncanny Valley CG, so you have
Which
like a young
was
looking
fine. It
for the
worked.
villain, yeah, because you're already thrown off by him.
And since he's
Yeah.
interacting with Flynn himself,
Yeah.
you have Jeff Bridges, older guy, totally natural, and this not quite right younger version where the teeth behind the lips aren't quite right and the eyes aren't exactly right. And you're like, that's a little off-putting. That's fine because it's a digital rendering. It's meant to be a little bit off. It's okay that it's not.
And it worked for the villain. I like the fact that he was not the same villain we had in the first movie, which was the Mass Control Program. He was a new creation, and he was created to create the perfect system. But unfortunately, Jeff Bridges then discovers a new race of sentient program type things called ISOs. I'm not a computer expert. You might have more familiarity with this stuff than I do, but Clue looked at them and said this was, these are not part of the perfect system, and then committed a genocide on them. And then, of course, they go into greater detail on this on the cartoon series.
Yeah.
And and Flynn gets exiled. Kevin Flynn gets exiled, and it's about his son getting called in there. And he actually at first he thought his father was calling him in, and then he sees Clue and thinks it's his dad. It's not. I am not your father, Sam. That. And what was interesting is that it shows that Kevin Flynn had flaws. Like he was a young guy eager to, grab the world by its horns, but he made a mistake. But he's doing his best to set it right.
It's the typical AI trope, right? Where you create the robot, you create the AI or whatever, and tell it, make the perfect world. Well, now if you leave perfect open to interpretation, it's that whole thing about the laws of robotics. What if a robot decides that the only way to keep you safe is to not let you ever do anything and subjugate you and take care of all of your needs, and you're not allowed to? That's horrific, and that's kind of the kind of thing that happened here. Also, there was a little bit of that Frankenstein story here, right? The human plays God, creates life, and life finds its creator wanting,
Yeah, I got that from it. What else I thought was fascinating about this movie was, in the first movie we see human gets transported into the computer world, but what the villain in this movie wants to do is he wants to send his programs out into our world, doing the reverse. Which
if you think it through, it's it seems possible, right? I mean, if
Yeah.
you could digitize a human being into a computer, then you can take a program and create a body for it in the real world using the reverse of the same technology.
And of course, the movie ends with the one surviving ISO escaping with Kevin Flynn into the real world, which is Cora, played by the lovely Olivia Wilde, and
Yes.
they left it there. And I was like, well, what's going to happen here? Because she's not something that should exist in our world, and yet
And
she
there's the
does. And
exact
yeah,
and
yeah,
there's the fulfillment
yeah,
of exactly what you saw the plan was, a program becoming a real life flesh and blood creature.
yeah. And I didn't know if they were going to be setting up a romance between those two or not, but maybe they would have. But we never got a sequel, and that will lead us to our first story tonight.
Yep.
I
Why
have been
didn't we get a sequel?
I have been highly suspicious because at the time Tron Legacy came out, Disney was all in on Tron. They made a movie. They made some video games to coincide with it. They weren't that well received, but they weren't terrible either. They made a really nice animated series, which was originally supposed to be a mini series, and then they ordered it to full series, which meant the writers had to not end. They didn't end it when they probably would have, and then of course it gets canceled. Why do you do this to us, Disney? You did it with
Because it's
Gargoyles.
Disney.
Like I used to love the show Gargoyles Disney made, and that got canceled preemptively before we got a proper, send up of that. And then they did the same thing with Tron Uprising, which I thought was amazing. Which was had a great voice cast in it. Elijah Wood played a young program that was working with the original Tron. It takes place between the new movies, and Bruce Boxleitner is the original Tron, but he got harmed, so he has to stay in a certain part of the grid and he can't leave. Otherwise, he'll de-res all the way. So he has to stay near an energy source and keep himself whole. So he sends this new young program out who's fighting against Clue, and he says, "You'll be the new Tron." And it had a kind of a Batman Beyond vibe to it, with the older hero helping out the younger guy, and it was interesting. It's definitely, and they got Bruce Boxleitner to do the voice and everything, and it had a good voice cast. Trisha Helfer was in it; she was one of the characters.
Nice.
Um, Lance Henriksen was the villain. He was
Wow.
one of Clue's henchmen who was taking over the city, and it was a nice animated series which has never been released on Blu-ray or DVD. You can probably watch it on Disney Plus if you subscribe to that. Tron 3. Okay, but let's go on to our first story of the night. Tron 3 director says Marvel and Star Wars helped kill the sequel. It was storyboarded and written. I believe this. I remember at the time when Disney bought Star Wars, I said, "There goes Tron 3." I just had a sick feeling that we weren't going to get a Tron 3. And now, considering the state of things, thank goodness Disney hasn't made a Tron 3
Right.
because I don't know what they would do to Tron. Because even if you didn't care as much for Tron Legacy, you have to admit it doesn't ruin the original for you. It's not something I think that harms the original. Whereas I don't know what they would do now with Tron. Kevin Flynn was always the villain. I don't know. Okay. Let me read this article, okay? Joseph Kosinski is flying high off the success of Top Gun Maverick, which debuted to a record-breaking 160 million over the Memorial Day weekend frame. The sequel is the first bona fide box office success for the director, who started his feature directorial debut career with Disney's Tron Legacy. That sequel earned 400 million worldwide, but that sum wasn't enough for Disney to allow Kosinski to pursue an intended sequel under the title Tron Ascension. In a new interview with Vulture, Kaczynski confirmed he had storyboarded and written the entire third Tron movie, where Disney pulled the plug on when Disney pulled the plug on the project in 2015. As the filmmaker said, "I got so close. I really tried." Kaczynski's idea for Tron 3 was to invert the franchise's core structure. Instead of human characters being sucked into a video game world, the video game world would bleed into the real world, and the film would be about the blending of the two. What do you think of that, huh?
It certainly seems like what was being set up. So
It,
yeah,
it
I could
sounds like
totally.
what you were interested in as far
Yeah.
as them taking this franchise forward. Okay, but it was But it was a different Disney by 2015. Kaczynski said about why the project died. When I made Tron Legacy, they didn't own Marvel. They didn't own Star Wars. We were the play for fantasy and science fiction. And once you've got those other things under your umbrella, it makes sense that you're going to put your money into a known property and not the weird art student with black fingernails in the corner. That was Tron, and that's okay. Kaczynski added, "Had I made Tron Ascension, I wouldn't have made Only the Brave, and I wouldn't have made the movies I made. But remember, the first Tron was not a hit when it came out. It's a cult classic, and if Tron Legacy is becoming the same thing, I couldn't be more thrilled. Tron Legacy starred Gerard Hedlund, Olivia Wilde, James Frayne, Bo Garrett, and Michael Sheen. Also, the guy who played the Scarecrow in The Dark Knight. I hate it when names escape me, but he played the son of Dillinger in that. Original Tron stars Jeff Bridges and Bruce Lautner. Also reprised the roles as Kevin Flynn and Alan Bradley, respectively, in the sequel. Daft Punk memorably complete created the film's original score. I have 3 Tron scores. Did you know this?
3, okay.
I have the one for the original Tron. I have the one for Tron Legacy, and then I have a remix version of the one for Tron Legacy. So I'm a big fan of these. Cillian Murphy, that was the one who played Dillinger Jr. in Tron Legacy. And if you have the guy made a point. He cast Cillian Murphy on purpose because obviously he was planning to use him as the villain in Part 3, right? So he has a little bit part in Tron Legacy. Of course, that never came to pass. But there was a stretch of time where reports suggested Disney might revive a third Tron movie with Lion film Garth Davis reportedly being eyed to take over the project after Krasinski's version fell through the cracks. Jared Leto was even circling a role. On the Morbius press tour earlier this year, Leto had this to say about the new Tron movie. We're working hard on Tron with our incredible partners at Disney, just an amazing group of creative people. We're getting closer and closer. Who knows? Something may be coming sooner than later. For now, Disney has not publicly announced any plans for Tron 3. What could have been, huh?
Yep, exactly.
I always theorize this is why we didn't get a Tron 3. I'm thinking we could just make Star Wars movie after Star Wars movie, and let's face it, a Star Wars movie is probably going to do better than a Tron movie. But I was not happy about that because I was like, we're so close to getting at least a Tron trilogy out of this.
And they've done such a bang-up job with Star Wars, let me tell you. So
anyway, well, that's neither here nor there, right? It's everywhere.
Well, yeah, pretty much.
They won't leave you alone about it either, and of course, you can't criticize Star Wars now, or you're considered and
you are bad people if you criticize.
I want to stop from hating Disney, but it's so difficult right now because they're anyway. But the point is we didn't get it. This is why we didn't get it.
That is anybody that has a problem with adults, causing grief for putting people and teaching them things that are inappropriate. That Disney's not the place for that.
Oh yeah, they got themselves involved in that mess. Yes, we talked about this a while back. So anyway,
yep.
No Tron 3. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know if we'll be getting this other Tron 3, which I don't necessarily want to see because, frankly, Disney's track record as of late hasn't been good. And frankly, Jared Leto, didn't Morbius kind of bomb?
I have no idea. I haven't paid attention to the numbers. There are some people that just seem to love it. I don't know if they're...
I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but how to do box office wise.
I don't know if they're being serious or if they're being ironic or what, but I don't know. I have no idea.
Tron movie was released on the PSP in the 2000s. Oh, the actual... like on one of those UMDs. The PlayStation Portal back then, they used to have these things called UMDs, which you would buy and you could watch a movie on your portable game system. Impressed with that?
Oh, there you go.
I'm hearing crickets.
Once you start getting into these game consoles, I'm lost.
No, but this is you watching a movie on your game console, like a mini DVD. And you can take it with you and watch your movie on your little screen. I'm being sarcastic.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, I'll say this though. Tron, not that I want to plug anything from Disney, but I do have Tron Legacy and Tron on Blu-ray, and also even the old DVD. They did a very nice special edition for the original Tron. It has a very nice documentary on it that goes into full detail of the making of it. The project didn't start out necessarily as a Disney-made project. It was a bunch of independent guys that were trying to sell the project to different studios. Disney were the ones that picked it up, but they had this idea. The idea didn't necessarily the genesis wasn't necessarily with the Disney creatives. It was an outside group that came in and made it for Disney.
Gotcha.
So I think that was kind of interesting. I never saw Tron, but I saw a clip from the Toy Story. Saw a clip from the Toy Story documentary. Yeah, because it was one of the earliest things of CG. The joke is that nobody has seen Morbius, so they make a joke that they seen it and say random quotes with the word "morb" in it, like it's Morbin time. Oh, that's funny. I don't know.
Wow.
Okay, so here we are. So what could have been? Okay. Anything left to say on Tron?
No,
The old Tron
again,
now?
it's a great example of what could have been, and I feel like we missed out.
Yeah, well, we saw the original, and the original is a great standalone movie. If you don't count in the sequel stuff, you could just watch the original, look at it as a classic science fiction movie, like many others, like 2001, like Blade Runner. And it's a pity we don't get more really good science fiction movies, but they're few and far between. Toby Emmerich steps down as Warner Brothers Picture Group chairman. Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi taking over studio.
Yeah, yeah,
Is this another Zaslav shakeup?
I think so. Let's get into it.
All right. Veteran film executive Toby Emmerich is exiting his post at Warner Brothers Picture Group chairman. Three sources told Variety. A company man who survived numerous Warner Brothers ownership changes for over 2 decades, Emmerich's transition out of the role follows weeks of chatter that he was leaving the studio. He will be replaced by Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdi, who will be named co-chairs of Warner Brothers Picture Group. A spokesperson for Warner Brothers Discovery did not immediately respond to a request for comment, though a formal announcement of the leadership change is expected imminently. DeLuca and Abdi's oversight will also include New Line Cinema. Their influence over DC films is presently unclear. The pair
Yeah.
recently led Metro Goldwyn Mayer until the company was sold to Amazon. At MGM, the duo landed buzzy projects such as Licorice Pizza, Cyrano, and The House of Gucci. I've seen one of those three, and it's a laugh riot, maybe for the wrong reasons. Have you seen House of Gucci?
I have not.
Oh man, I don't know if it's a farce or if it's brilliant. It's like it's a movie I have to admit is terrible, but I still loved it. I don't know what that says about me. It's a lot of actors putting on bad Italian accents because they're playing members of Gucci, and it's okay. Enough about House of Gucci. Why are you talking about House of Gucci, Troy? Well, this is a stream. Okay.
Sorry, I brought it up.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Emmerich was named chairman in 2018 and has overseen Warner Brothers during a time of upheaval, one that has seen it endure two major corporate shakeups. First, the company was sold to AT&T, but massive debt, and Telecom's decision to exit the media business in order to concentrate resources on building out its 5G network resulted in another sale, with Discovery taking over the company this year. That was basically AT&T. Under newly minted CEO David Zaslav, the company was rechristened Warner Brothers Discovery with an eye toward bolstering its in-house streaming service, HBO Max, and complementing that content with Discovery's reality programming. Emmerich's departure raises questions about the future of several key lieutenants at the studio, many who have served at his side for decades. Among those whose future is murky and DC Films chief is DC Films chief Walter Ramada, who has been credited with stabilizing the cinematic output at the division and bringing some quality control to a company that had suffered several critical failures, such as Suicide Squad, Batman vs Superman Dawn, and Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. DeLuca and Andy presumably will have their own roster of executives that they will want to bring over. With DeLuca, Zaslav is getting a seasoned executive producer with deep ties to the creative community. Over the course of his career, DeLuca has championed and worked alongside the likes of Paul Thomas Anderson, David Fincher, and Paul Greengrass. He was also Oscar nominated for producing the likes of The Social Network, Moneyball, and Captain Phillips. Emmerich's reputation was challenged after former Warner Brothers CEO Jason Kilar decided to release the studio's entire 2021 film slate concurrently in theaters on HBO Max. That left Emmerich to repair strange relationships with talent and their incensed agents, generous back end payouts to the impacted filmmakers. Actors helped ease those tensions. Okay, I think we're now realizing why he's stepping down.
Yeah.
I don't know what
And
was in his control when Killar made that decision, but that damaged the company.
And again, I think this is another, either the writing's on the wall and he's like, I guess I got to step out before I get stepped out, or someone said, well, you can leave or we can leave you. you know but yeah, I think this is definitely more Zaslav swinging the proverbial machete. Also, Cameron Pasha did make a comment on this. He said that it looks like Emmerich and Abdi will also run New Line Cinema, and while the article said, there's it's not clear whether or not they'll be in charge of DC. It seems very likely that Zaslav is not going to hold DC as separate and above and apart from the rest of the whole studio, and he's going to go, yeah, treat it like a business, do what you got to do, make things go. That's so,
and you better perform.
Yeah. And so I think that, as a lot of people have been talking about, they're going to start looking at the dollars and cents of the DC. And this is all speculation. Okay. Partly based on things that Cameron Pasha has said, things that I've been assuming myself, but they're going to be looking at the dollars and cents and going, okay, this is how we fix this, or you know what? We're scrapping this and starting over again. And I think that's exact. And we said this going into the whole, was it last year when everything got put on hold? Flashpoint got pushed out.
Yep.
Aquaman 2 got pushed out. And I said, and everyone was asking, even in the chat, they were asking, so do you think that they're going to remove Amber Heard from Aquaman 2 completely? And I said they are not going to make a decision until after the trial was done. Well, the trial's finished, and it looks like someone tried to leak something, but it wasn't an official word. It was quickly kiboshed. And I think that decision is not yet made still. I think that they are now looking at Aquaman 2 and saying, what can we do? Are we going to go forward with someone else? In which case we refilm 10 minutes worth of footage to set up the person that's going to go forward as Mira? Or do we cut her completely? Or do we still have to wait and see what happens with a possible
No.
What's it called?
It's done. Her reputation is completely shot now. The old expression, there's no such thing as bad. This is bad publicity for the movie now.
I've always said that. That whole thing, there's no such thing as bad publicity, is bullshit. There absolutely is bad publicity that can hurt you.
And just cast Emilia Clarke. The fans seem to want it. She was a big, let's be blunt, she was a big star over at HBO because.
And I'm personally of the mind that if they want Emilia Clarke over at Warner Brothers, get her contracted so that we don't get a fucking Kira, a Han Solo story. Please. That's a 2-for-1.
The only reason why they wouldn't, unless they want to save her for a different character in the DC universe, but you should just use Emilia Clarke.
Well, here's the real. That's not where the question is. Okay, the question really is, do they want to continue their Snyderverse? Do they really want to do that? If they decide to scrap it all and go back to brass tacks, then they're not worried about recasting Mira. They're looking at how are we going to reboot this whole kettle of fish?
Deleted sense. I see what you did there. Okay, I don't think it will matter. Aquaman 2 will take no matter what. Here's what I want to say though about the original Aquaman, and I think they didn't even realize it at the time. That did very well. The Jason Momoa, whether you liked it or not, it did very well. And it came out the one Christmas we didn't get one of those Disney Star Wars movies. And it was a big hit in certain other markets too, which we've often talked about. And what does Warner Brothers do? They could have made an Aquaman animated series, and so they make that horrible looking thing for the HBO Max, which I don't know why they did that. Like, Aquaman could have been their next big DC superhero after that movie came out. And this thing seems to be stuck in development hell. I don't know if and when Yeah, I don't know. It depends on how the final product turns out. Does anybody know anything else about the movie behind the scenes besides the Amber Heard 10 minutes?
Yeah,
Is
I
Black
haven't
Manta?
heard.
I'm assuming Black Manta's returning as the villain because they set him up in the first one. But
Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything because honestly, I haven't even really been following the Snyderverse. I've had no interest. You
yeah,
know,
this is part of the problem. Everything is stuck connected to the Snyderverse, where they do some brief mentions of what happened in Justice League, but I think the director is kind of trying to treat like, can I treat this as its own movie?
the biggest
Which was
problem,
James Wan, director of a lot of the Fast and the Furious
yeah,
movies and
the
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 Conjuring
biggest
movie.
problem that they had there was exactly what I said too. They were trying to walk with they were trying to walk with one foot on each side of the line. They wanted to get rid of the Batfleck and Snyderverse Superman and all that kind of stuff. But Wonder Woman did pretty well. Aquaman did pretty well. How do we keep them and get rid of the others? Can we recast some people and not others? Do we completely reboot but still use these actors? And that gets incredibly freaking messy, because anytime you keep if they did a new Justice League movie and recast, Superman and Batman and Flash, but kept Aquaman and Wonder Woman, you go, well, is the continuity of the previous movie still intact or is it not? It doesn't really make any sense. I mean, could you see that? Could you see them doing a Justice League and they pull in Pattinson Batman and, some completely other
It'll
Superman?
all be explained by the Flashpoint movie coming out.
Well, and that's what I speculated was why they were, aside from the problems they're having with the current, and that's a harder one, right? Because they filmed that whole movie with that goofball, right? It's not like they can easily replace him, without completely refilming the whole damn movie.
On the other hand, how many times do you get to see Dolph Lundgren ride a seahorse into battle? That was
Well,
from
there's that.
Aquaman.
Well,
He
there's
was
that.
Mira's father.
Yeah, yeah.
Dolph Lundgren was in it.
Well, do
And
you know who played? You know who played Aquaman's father, right?
what?
It was
Who?
Tamara Morrison,
Oh,
Boba
that's
Fett.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And he ends up getting with Nicole Kidman's as his mother. I remember that. And no, I mean, out of all the Snyderverse movies, I think that was the most successful because it felt more like a superhero movie than the other ones, at least because it's just him going up against the bad guys. And the Black Manta costume looks amazing. At least don't know much else about it. I thought Black Manta was a great villain in the first Aquaman movie, and you know, it's interesting. Nobody complained about you know having a black actor playing a villain, and they completely accepted him in Aquaman, but apparently if you're critical of other things these days then you get called something else, right? But we won't go there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Just reboot everything. Yeah, they're gonna have to, I think. You
But
could keep.
unfortunately, the longer they take to do it, the harder it is. I said they should have rebooted it back when they did after Batman v Superman. And I'm like, this is shit. And then they put out Suicide Squad, and that was shit. And I'm like, fucking reboot already. And they ridiculously and stupidly kept throwing bad money after bad. But
Yeah.
now they're in so far, it's so much harder. It takes someone with, the steel cojones of Zaslav to say, screw it. I don't care how much money we've wasted on this. We're not wasting a single friggin' penny more. We're done.
Aquaman with CGI Kenny with sharks with flickering laser beams, dumb but fun. Yeah, that's kind of how I would describe it. And I'll say this: James Wan is at least a competent director. I love *Malignant* that came out last year, his horror movie, which I know Al didn't care for, and I know some people rubbed the wrong way, but I thought it was goofy, good, goofy fun. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's kind of weird how James Wan, he either does horror movies or he does these big budget action movies. Isn't that kind of odd? He just does either. He'll switch off between those because he's made the Conjuring movies. Before we leave, though, I just want to make a point. Keep in mind that Emmerich, though, he did a lot for Warner Brothers. He was behind he was. I think he's the one that signed off on the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He signed off on the Conjuring movies. He did a lot of big hits for Warner Brothers. I think this is another example of the pandemic destroying someone's career. I think when Killar made that decision, I think they're feeling that he just didn't mend enough fences because they lost Christopher Nolan because of the whole day and date thing.
Yeah, and I think rightly so. I think he made an appropriate statement, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, here. Box office Top Gun's Maverick smoking competition with stunning projected 33% drop. Now, I kind of did a double take, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. It's still dropped, but this is a good drop because it's not as bad as a lot of other movies, like certain Marvel movies. Okay, Tom Cruise is king at the domestic box office once again. Paramount's Top Gun Maverick, which was co-financed and co-produced by Skydance, is soaring to the top of the charts for its second weekend of release, drawing in a commanding 25 million on Friday from 4,751 locations after enjoying the widest domestic opening last weekend with 4,732 North American cinemas. Maverick actually added 19 more for its sophomore outing. The studio has projected an 84.5 million haul through Sunday, a stunning 33% dive from its 124 million three-day opening. A soft decline like that would be a superlative achievement, marking the smallest drop in domestic box office history for a film that opened above 100 million. This is what we used to call in the days a movie having legs. Is that right?
Exactly.
To compare the recent high grossers like Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness and The Batman fell 67% and 50% respectively in their sophomore outings. And I think I know the reason for that and the reason for the success of this. It's called word of mouth. Yep. Maybe you didn't go see it on the first weekend, and maybe you asked your friend who saw it on the first weekend what they thought of it. Like Birdman loved it, he said. He said, it's like, I can't believe this movie was made in this day and age. It's just a feel-good movie. He had a good time seeing it. Shocking, right?
I know. Imagine that.
Even for a star like Cruise, a drop as low as 33% is largely unheard of in recent years. The actor's last blockbuster, 2018's Mission Impossible Fallout, fell 42.5% in its second weekend after opening to 61.2 million. All this is to say that Maverick is doing very well. Word of mouth has been spectacular for the sequel, with the film earning a rare A+ grade on the Cinema Score, indicating maximum approval for general ticket buyers. Paramount expects Maverick to expand its domestic gross to 290 million through Sunday. It is already Cruise's biggest film ever at the domestic box office, passing his previous best to 243.3 million haul of 2005's War of the Worlds on Saturday. Reunited with his Oblivion director Joseph Kosinski, Cruise returns to Top Gun as Pete Maverick Mitchell, who must train a new fleet of aviators for a tricky mission. Alongside Cruise, the sequel stars Miles Teller, Glenn Powell, John Hamm, Jennifer Connelly, and Val Kilmer. I need to see this movie already. I'm a little embarrassed to say I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if you've had a chance to catch it.
No, I haven't. As I told someone in the chat, not for lack of desire to do so.
Yes, it's just timing for me too. I did rewatch the original this weekend though. I figured I'd catch up, and the original holds up very well. Great slice of 80s entertainment, and if you think about it, back then the shots they were getting with those planes must have been incredible to do with those jets. But I'm very impressive. Apparently, CG was used sparingly in this. I think it's a lot of those are real planes you're seeing on screen in this new one. So
yeah,
very excited to see.
I love that. It's just like with Nolan, what we were talking about over on Pops on Pop Culture when we did our show about Dunkirk. This dedication to doing everything as real as possible, real planes, real everything. For Nolan, when there was a particular type of plane that he literally couldn't reproduce, he went with a model plane and used forced perspective and did it very, very well. But his limitation was he wanted zero CG. And there does come a point where it's like, well, if you're not going to, hire 10,000 extras, you better, replicate the extras you have to fill up that beach because you kind of fell short. And I think that from what I've heard of Maverick, everything is practical that can be practical, but I'm sure they touched up some things when necessary. And
yeah, well, that's fine.
That is perfectly, what is the old craftsman saying? The right tool for the right job, right?
Exactly.
Do it practical whenever you can, but sometimes you got to gild those edges just a little bit. That's what the technology's for.
Yeah. And I'm glad Cruise has a bit. Actually, I think Eddie Penzick was saying that Paramount finally has a hit on their hands, right? Because that
Yeah.
studio, I don't think they had anything last year, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
Quiet
Anyway.
Place 2, maybe that did all right. I don't know what else they released last year. And I have to tell you, can they get someone from Skydance from Cruise's camp to take over Paramount Plus, please?
I know, right?
Fix it.
Please.
Fix it. I don't know if they can fix something else at this point, but you never know. If anyone could, it's Tom Cruise. Okay, at this point, because I know he's busy with Mission Impossible, and I like how he says no to the people that don't know what they're doing.
Right.
Like, no, we're not going to put this on 45 days later. And of course, he was right because this movie's doing Gonzo at the box office. It's just ridiculous. Imagine that they made a good movie that doesn't. I guess I assume that doesn't preach agenda politics. Didn't call legacy fans scumbags, and people went back to see it multiple times. Who knew that would work? Eh? Yes, because people coded the movies to have a good time. This is how movies tend to work too. Sometimes you're out with a family member or a group of friends, and you go to dinner, and then they want to go see a movie. Well, you got to go see a movie. I'd rather go see a good movie than something that's gonna have an agenda, right?
Right.
And that's what this is. And but it's interesting. Let's go to the next article. Top Gun's box office shows importance of non-Marvel audiences.
There you go. I
Are
can
you
buy that.
are you part of the Marvel audience?
Not anymore. I'm not. Not for a long time now.
I was horrified at hearing what happened to Mr. Fantastic. I'm just gonna say that. But
Yeah.
I don't think the people that make these movies understand that people like Thor and Mr. Fantastic, maybe they're not as popular with the mainstream as like Tony Stark or Captain America.
Well,
but
the
they're still
problem
very
with
popular.
Fantastic Four has been the false starts, and
Yeah, oh man,
they've done so poorly by the first family of Marvel that everybody is sheepish about trying to do anything with them.
Top Gun Mavericks box office shows importance of non-Marvel audiences. Okay, I already said that. Top Gun Mavericks big box office opening weekend reveals a major box office demographic that's been underserved in the growth of Marvel and other superhero movies in recent years, with a domestic opening weekend of nearly 125 million. The Top Gun sequel starring Tom Cruise isn't just Cruise's biggest opening of his career, but also marks the post-pandemic return of a major segment of the movie-going audiences. Before the pandemic, domestic ticket sales have been on a steady decline for several decades as more and more people opted to stay home and watch streaming movies and TV. But thanks to increases in ticket prices, total box office revenue still steadily rose over the same period until theaters shut down in 2020 in response to the pandemic. According to the Motion Picture Association's leader, the theatrical and home entertainment markets reports opens 2020-2021 saw drops in theatrical attendance across the board, but the most drastic reduction in theater audiences came from the 25 to 39 and 40 to 49 age groups. While audiences have started to return for some big hits, Top Gun Maverick's box office comes from a demographic that has been slower to go back to theaters. According to Variety, 55% of Top Gun Maverick's opening weekend office came from moviegoers who were 35 years old and older. It's not clear how those ages skew between adults in their 30s, 40s, and over 50. Either way, it's a statistic worth noting due to the significance of older moviegoers to the overall health of the theatrical industry and a potential sign of continued post-pandemic recovery at the box office. And back in 2017, the ARP released a report revealing that 31% of movie-going audience was comprised of people aged 50 years and older. The report also revealed that 50-plus demographic shared a disproportionate role in driving ticket sales for a number of genres, including 75% of art house films, 56% of Christian films, 54% of independent films, and 49% of mature thrillers, despite only comprising a third of cinema visits. So this is a very important audience demographic. There's been a number of big box office hits since theaters opened back up, but those hits were mostly the products of ticket sales to 17 to 35-year-olds, while women over 35 and everyone over 45 have been more reluctant to return. Top Gun Maverick seeing such a big percentage in ticket sales coming from the 35 and over audience is a big sign of recovery for the theatrical industry. It's doubtful the box office will see returns anywhere near the record-setting 2019 levels, at least not in the near future. But it's clear that older audiences are essential to a diverse and functioning box office. Other than the fact that its sequel, Top Gun Maverick, also falls outside the makeup of the typical modern blockbuster. It's certainly a good thing movies like Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness to see the success they've had, but a proper box office recovery should see more audience diversity and bigger success for smaller movies. With the box office successes, movies like Top Gun Maverick and Everything Everywhere All at Once that fall outside the typical MCU style blockbuster and pull in demographics outside the 17 to 35-year-old males, things are looking up. Okay, thoughts?
Yeah, I think that this is an example. This is a story that should not be a shock or surprise to anyone. This is an example of common sense playing out, right? We said it back when it was the whole story about Sonic, right? Just give the fans what they want. Good entertainment, accept the criticism, do better based on reasonable expectations. You're always going to be more profitable.
Yeah. Sonic, I would argue, is a family movie, and also people that are fans of the video game will get a kick out of it. But I do treat it as like a family movie, something you take your kids to see.
But there is some translation,
which is good. Yeah,
this there was a built-in audience here with Maverick, right? And so you have to honor what went before and decide if you want to go, what you want to do with this, if you want to take this further, if there's going to be sequels or whatever, or if this is a one-time thing or what you're doing, and do it well. And have your vision and commit to it. And honestly, that's what Tom Cruise decided. He was not going to let any pandemic or any studio or anybody tell him what to do. He had a vision and he said, I will not compromise.
It's paying off big time.
It is.
This may be the biggest movie of the summer. We'll see how. What we have Jurassic World 3 coming out, and then we have
which I'm not really that fired up about. I couldn't care less. I haven't seen about the last 2 or 3 Jurassic films.
I've liked the last 2 Jurassic Worlds, but I am more excited for Maverick. And I guess what's the other one? The other one is Thor, Love and Thunder. That's another one coming out. So, can I get a Doctor Doom movie, Daniel Herron? That I actually think could work. Maybe. I don't know.
I think that Marvel villains far more than DC villains deserve their own movies. Characters like Magneto and Doctor Doom, who absolutely are villains, also play as anti-heroes.
Do you remember X-Men First Class? Did you see that one when it came out with the origin?
I probably did, but you're gonna have to refresh my memory.
It was the origin. It was like an origin movie for the X-Men. Like it took place in the 60s. It had different. Of course, you had younger actors playing the parts, and you had Michael Fassbender as a young Magneto. Mm-hmm. And you're watching the movie. It's not up until the end. You're thinking Magneto's one of the good guys.
Yeah.
Because what's he doing? He's going after former members of a certain political party that killed lots of people over in Germany. You know what I'm talking about. And that's how it starts out. And you're sympathetic with him. And, there are bad mutants in it too. But he's actually allied with Professor Xavier in the movie, which I thought was interesting. They start out as friends, and they actually show that friendship. And I did think it was interesting.
Marvel has that tendency to have their villains kind of back. I mean, look at all of the characters we consider to be heroes that started out as villains. I mean, forget about the live action crap. Wanda started out as a villain. She ended up becoming an Avenger. Quicksilver. Magneto's gone back and forth. Namor started out as a villain before eventually becoming a anti-hero, sometimes hero. That's the thing about Marvel. They always were meant to be there was always meant to be some ambiguity in their characters, whereas DC was always meant to be absolute good and absolute evil. You know, there wasn't meant to be any ambiguity. And for all those people that are like, well, Superman's not realistic, you know, you need some realism, some ambiguity. No, you don't. If that's what you want, go over to Marvel. That's not what DC is. You know?
Yeah, exactly. DC is not. Yeah,
But that's why I really don't understand a Joker film. I know it did well. I know a lot of people liked it. I don't understand it. But if you did one for Doctor Doom, think about it. Tragic character, genius, with all that backstory, 1 foot in science, 1 foot in magic, and a benevolent dictator in his own country.
yeah.
That would be a very timely one to do right now, where
Well,
all the world looks at him as a villain, but he is a world leader and his people love him. Think about it a little bit.
yeah, I would argue with Joker. It's not. You're right. He's not the same thing as Marvel. But in the movie, the Joker movie, he's he's not a good character even from the get go. I don't think. I think you can see him as a villain from the start.
Yeah.
He's just.
And I think a lot of
So he
people
was-
are not
like Tony Soprano. Like Tony Soprano. Yeah, people. Oh, he's all right. No, if you look at it carefully, he's never
or
been good on
even
that show. Yeah,
even what's his name in Breaking Bad, you know,
Walter White.
Walter
Yeah.
White. He is not a good guy. He starts out seeming like he is, but he's absolutely not. By the end of it, you should be questioning why you're rooting for the bad guy. But
Breaking Bad is interesting because the creators of that show always show you their points in the show where Walter could have made another choice
right,
that would have gotten him what he needed,
yeah.
and he didn't have to go bad. And I'm not going to get into detail what those
And
were. And he
what I
chooses
was
to
going to
go
say
bad.
about that, though, is I don't think enough people look at Joker with the level of sophistication it requires.
No,
Because it is very easy if you are squinting and not engaging your brain, you could look at this and see him as a sympathetic character. But when you
Yeah.
realize that you are seeing it from the point of view of a unreliable narrator,
yes, and they even make a point of that in the movie. There, you realize some things he saw weren't happening.
yeah. But I think
They
some
point
people
that
are
out,
still
yeah.
overlooking that.
Here's how I see it. You could not like the movie, that's fine, but I always saw it as, in The Dark Knight when the Joker is talking about his different origins, about how his dad beat him, and then another one about his how his wife was. He gave different stories for how he got the smile being the Joker, and they're all bullshit, basically.
I love
and that's
that
sort of how I
because
saw that. Yeah,
that story, the first time I saw that multiple choice history for the Joker was it was a graphic novel. Was it called Arkham? Or was it?
might have been.
I don't
Arkham
remember.
Asylum did have weird art in it.
Yeah.
It might have been Arkham Asylum. I think it was called Arkham
and
Asylum.
the whole
yeah.
idea was it was kind of like Dante's Inferno. Batman has to go through the levels of hell because everybody in Arkham is kind of taken over, and he realizes you do end up with a little bit of sympathy for the inmates, because you find like Harvey Dent, who, on the surface it's good and evil, right? Flip the coin. If it comes up scarred side, he does something evil. If it comes up clean side, he does something good. Well, his treatment was the doctors were trying to wean him off the coin by first going to a 6-sided die, and then giving him more and more choices. But that messed him up so much that he couldn't even make a simple decision like whether or not to go to the bathroom anymore, and he ends up messing himself. And Bruce sees this and realizes, yeah, that's not a good situation. That's going to have to be something addressed. But yeah, that's where he has an interview with the psychiatrist that's working with Joker, who said exactly that yeah, he's got this personality that he's literally reconstructing himself on a daily basis.
I can see that.
And that was their explanation for why you had the funny clown in some stories, the psychopathic murderer in others, the simple thief like in the Adam West era, and you could get away with that. I loved that in the Heath Ledger. And I would even go further and say that as tragic as Heath Ledger's death would be or was,
Yeah.
You could recast him easily enough by
Sure.
exactly that scene. And I mean within the Nolan verse, right? If
Yeah.
you were to bring back Christian Bale as Batman, you could have another person playing the Joker, and it is perfectly acceptable that he looks a little bit different, acts a little bit different, but he's the same person essentially, you know?
Yeah. Well, I guess they felt the actor would be in Ledger's shadow too much, and he just didn't want to go there. I think he was struck with what to do with Part 3. So,
Yeah.
Top Gun Mavericks risks China's anger for keeping Taiwan's flag on the bomber jacket worn by Tom
Boom,
Cruise.
right on the heels of Spider-Man saying we are not taking the Statue of Liberty out of our movie. They do this. Go on, read the article.
Taiwanese audiences erupted in cheers during an advanced screening of Top Gun Maverick, following the appearance of the iconic bomber jacket worn by Tom Cruise's titular character. According to local online media outlets SCTN, viewers were moved, surprised, and delighted upon seeing the Taiwan flag on the jacket and clapped and cheered several times. The flag was absent in the 2019 trailer for the film. Now, this was in Taiwan, and I really do in some ways feel very bad for that audience that they're so underrepresented that this one little thing made them erupt in cheers.
Yeah.
It actually is kind of sad. That I mean, I'm glad it brought them some joy, but you know, I hope their future is better than what I fear it could be, but we'll see. As Insider previously reported, the Taiwan and Japan flags were replaced at the time by other designs bearing similar colors in what was widely regarded as a move to appease China's censors. However, both flags appear to have been restored in the cut of the film being screened in Taiwan. Top Gun Maverick is not expected to be released in China, Bloomberg reported, though it did not specify a reason, including the flags risk angering China, the outlet reported. Paramount Pictures, the studio behind the film, did not immediately respond to Insider's request for comment. The jackets first appeared in the original Top Gun in 1986. A large patch on its back commemorates the real-life U.S. battleships tour of Japan, Taiwan, and the Western Pacific. Fittingly, the patch displayed the flags of the United States, United Nations, Japan, and Taiwan. Yes, because that's where the tour happened.
Yeah.
The Taiwanese flag is seen as a symbol of independence and defiance by Beijing, which considers the island to be Chinese territory, per The Guardian. Meanwhile, Japan occupied China during World War II, and the two countries have had bad blood from the fighting 7 decades ago, Insider reported. Per the BBC, Hollywood has been censoring its films to make them more palatable to the lucrative Chinese market. Hollywood is now pushing back. Chris Fenton, a former movie executive and author of Feeding the Dragon Inside the $1 Trillion Dilemma Facing Hollywood, the NBA, and American Business, told Bloomberg. The market is simply not worth the aggravation anymore in attempting to please Chinese censors. I need to read that book, Feeding the Dragon. That might be interesting. In the United States, Top Gun Maverick grossed 160.5 million over the 4-day Memorial Day weekend. I know these numbers keep changing. It just depends the article written when it was. Okay, but it was making it the biggest Memorial Day weekend ever. So good on Top Gun. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you have to say to this?
I said it back when Disney was doing all the capitulating they were to China. You need to shit or get off the pot. You need to either make movies for China or make movies for the U.S. And if you make movies for the US and you can also sell them overseas, great. But if you try to please all the people, you end up pleasing none of the people. And there is no way this film would be doing as well as it did if people were looking at it going, you caved, you gave in. You know, right now, either you go woke or you completely stay away from anything even close to woke. Don't put wokeness into your ad campaign. Don't censor some little element to appease another country. Don't do any of it. Either all or nothing. You know, Because at least if you're going to go woke, you can at least appeal to your woke audience. That's all you're going to get, but at least you're being true to what you're doing.
You need to be going for all of your audience members.
Exactly.
You know, the left, the right, the middle. Maybe stay with the middle for a little while, see how that works for you. Of course.
You make a lot more money that way. And look, the proof is in the pudding, right? And this movie's paying off. And China, you don't want the movie? Fine. We're doing just fine without you. And I think that, and I said this a long time ago, you keep trying to cater to China that hates you, you are backing the wrong horse, because eventually things happen, you know? I mean, can you imagine if we had invested as much as we had in Russia back during the Cold War, you know, and then, you know, things fell apart and we'd be like, oops, you know?
Can you imagine if you've invested in several theme parks over there, and especially if we are not on so friendly terms with them later on? Yeah. That could be a problem for certain entertainment companies, right?
Well, this was why we laughed when we were talking about McDonald's pulling out of Russia. This is temporary. We'll go back. No, you're not going back. Russia will not have you back. But guess what? All those restaurants you left behind, they still own. They're still running under.
You know, it's funny. Months back, even before this whole stuff happened, there was a Russian American woman. She married an American, and she was talking about how things were different between the U.S. and Russia. And she actually was saying a lot of complimentary things about the United States until she got to McDonald's. And she said the McDonald's in Russia, you get these nice big hamburgers, right?
Yeah.
Not these piddly little shrunken things, which I guess is what we have over here. I'm kind of curious as to what the burgers were like at McDonald's in Russia. They were probably
and the other thing that Russia
better quality. I don't know.
That the United States needs to learn really freaking fast is self-sufficiency. You know, everyone thinks that these trade embargoes that they've put against Russia is going to hurt Russia. It has helped Russia. It has only hurt themselves. It's the countries that have sanctioned Russia are in financial straits. They can't get fuel. They can't get food. Everything's getting more expensive. While Russia took a little hit for a little while. Now the ruble is larger, is doing better than it has in decades. And they're relying on themselves. When you invest in yourself, you don't have to worry about anyone else. Everyone outside. Think about a siege. Okay, that's what a trade embargo is supposed to be, right? We're not going to do business with them. We're going to starve them out. But you're not starving out anybody if they've got their own farmland and their own technology and their own access to fuel, and they're perfectly content to live the rest of their lives inside their walls while everyone outside starves.
I am very terrified about what's going to be happening by year's end, but I'll get into that later because I have an article that I'm going to get into later, which may explain some of my trepidations, but about where maybe our own economy.
But anyway, getting back to the topic of the industry, the film industry and Maverick in particular, you know, make your movies for the United States, and if you can make a few bucks on the side selling it overseas, great. Otherwise, temper yourself.
Here's what I don't understand. The reason why American movies, these big American movies did well overseas is because the audience over there wanted to see these American movies. They don't necessarily want to be catered to. It's like me with Japanese animation. I like Japanese animation because it is made in Japan for a Japanese audience, and I happen to like it.
Yeah.
And
even representatives of China have said, no, we don't want you to make movies for us. That's, it was the response to the whole Mulan thing. We can make our own movies. We want you to make your movies, and we want, those are the movies we want.
Remember when Independence Day Resurgence came out, and there's all this China pandering in it, and the Chinese audience actually groaned when they would hear it because they knew it was BS.
Yeah.
Troy, I agreed. I think John's last good DC story is. Oh, sorry.
I was talking about the multiple choice Joker, and
right.
He was talking about the three Jokers. I'm like, that was stupid because it took a great idea of multiple choice and limited it to three. I'm like, that's just dumb.
Speaking of actors that need to be let go from DC projects, and an actor that why hasn't he ever been hired for a DC project is beyond me, which is Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp could play any Batman villain.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he'd make a good Riddler. He'd make
He'd
a
make a
good
great Joker. He could do anything. He's like
Mad Hatter, for crying out loud.
oh well, yeah, he kind of already did play that, but
Right?
yeah. All right, so here we go. Depp heard trial. Have you heard of that? Maybe
I've
you've
heard a
done some
little bit about
streams on
that.
it. I've been on
Yeah.
there trying to keep up. Depp heard trial and mainstream media trust. Okay, so you have some bullet points for this article. After witnessing media's coverage of the Johnny Depp defamation trial, 56% of Americans do not trust the mainstream media to tell them the truth. Prior to the trial, just 34% of Americans did not trust newspapers, television, and radio news reporting. That number has jumped to 56%, according to our latest polling.
Yeah.
I want to bring something up to us, and maybe I've even been guilty about this myself. Sometimes people that aren't clued into this stuff like we are each week, you have to have patience with them. Like,
Yeah.
for instance, we may not like what's happened with some of our favorite entertainment series or franchises, as it
Yeah.
were, and maybe the mainstream audience hasn't caught on yet. I think they will at some point.
Yeah.
I think you will start this. I think you will start seeing more and more people waking up and spending their dollars elsewhere. I think Top Gun Maverick might be proof of that. Hopefully,
I have
and
a
we'll see what
friend
goes on.
that I've gotten into a number of debates with over Russia, over the
Right.
pandemic, over everything. And it's because he just believes whatever the media tells him. And I'm like, look, you need to understand you're literally being lied to by the media. You need to check some other sources. Yes, I know that CNN and MSNBC and Fox News are all biased, but they're biased in their way. Take in all of them. See what they're saying that's the same, see what they're saying that's different. Engage your brain and say what is most likely the case, right? And then go outside the United States and see what other countries are saying.
Yeah.
You know? And take all of that. Oh, I don't have time for that. Then you don't have time to express an opinion.
Yeah.
Shut the hell up. If you don't know what you're talking about, shut up.
It's
but
what's
I'm
called.
telling you, I have taken the time to do that, and I know what I'm talking about.
It's what's called informed opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the article, I'll read a bit from it. For years, most Americans dutifully believed Amber Heard's claims that her ex husband physically and sexually abused her throughout their short marriage. Claims to the contrary were suppressed and censored by big tech and the mainstream media. This is true. A certain platform, which will go not mentioned right now, when Johnny Depp hired Adam Waldman to share evidence that contradicted Amber's claims, Twitter suspended his account without warning or comment, and the lawyer was maligned as a misogynistic enabler. Wow. Depp's career was over, and the matter was settled as far as big tech and the media were concerned. But their ability to shape the narrative was about to be upended by a Virginia Circuit Court judge named Penny. The 57-year-old judge decided to allow the American people to watch the trial live on YouTube, and millions watched. Over the course of 6 weeks, viewers were forced to reconcile what the evidence and testimony were revealing compared to the narrative that the mainstream media was selling. Whether they were watching the wall to wall coverage or consuming clips on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or YouTube, it was clear that almost everyone that Amber Heard was lying,
Yep.
regardless of their political affiliation, race, gender, or sexual orientation. Americans were forced to admit to themselves that the mainstream media had been lying to them for years. Americans were fixated as they listened to Amber describe the brutal attacks she suffered at the hands of her violent ex-husband. They watched as Amber explained in explicit, excruciating detail how Johnny Depp would pound his fist studded with sharp rings into her face over and over again. But when the lawyers presented pictures of her injuries, something didn't add up. Where were the cuts? Where were the bruises? Survivors of domestic violence were perhaps the most outspoken on social media, calling Amber's injuries nothing more than blemishes or pimples, certainly not the vicious attack she described under oath. I mean, think about it. When
Actually, let me interject something there. There have been a lot of people that have been speculating that some of the bruising may very well have been from getting some things done elective surgery, so to speak.
Oh,
And that's another reason there's no, doctor's notes or, records or anything like that, because she doesn't want anyone to know she's had stuff done, but she's trying to use it as, oh, look at all this bruising around my face. And a lot of people say, yeah, those look like the kind of bruises you get from injections, not from being punched in the face.
and and it's awful though, because if you think about it, the victims of actual abuse, spousal abuse, it makes it harder for them to claim their cases when someone is pointed out to be a liar in cases such as this. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, despite these contradictions, the media continued to report the narrative, seemingly unaware that the readers were watching the trial and had just as much or more information than they did. NPR
Yeah.
reporter Ambers claims that Johnny had pounded his fist in her face over and over again like a meat tenderizer, suggesting that the pictures presented to the jury showed her swollen face. NPR was under the impression that their listeners didn't see the pictures they were describing. Their listeners were beginning to realize that they couldn't trust the media to tell them the truth about this trial.
Yeah.
This is because the media likes narratives.
Well, this is also the media is trying to protect their own interests, right? So they've been calling out LawTube and saying, these people aren't real journalists, they're biased, they're this and they're that. And everyone is looking at that going, wait a minute, they're not giving any opinions. I mean, like, Law and Copyright Strike is literally just carrying the raw feed from the court. They're not commenting, they're not doing anything. It's literally just a camera in the courtroom. How is that biased? And I'll talk on this another time, but the truth is biased to the biased media. It really is. The truth is triggering to people with an agenda, and you're absolutely right. There are people sitting there watching these feeds and they see two pictures of apparent bruising for 2 different days, and then they superimpose them and you realize it's the exact same picture submitted for 2 different dates. That's what we call a fabrication. That's a lie, and you don't need someone to tell you that. You can see the evidence for yourself. The jury is sitting there getting the evidence and weighing who's telling the truth and who's telling a lie. What evidence trumps what, lack of evidence, so to speak. And you're absolutely right. As I've been, doing the tweets on the Tweeterverse, I've been having people follow me, people that are absolutely the opposite side of the political spectrum from me, that they're absolutely left-wing loonies, but they are 100% agreement with me on Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, because you can't argue it. You can't fight it. It's absolutely real, and I think the biggest, I don't know what you'd call it, but battle cry that's come out of this is, no, you don't believe all women. You listen to all women, but believe evidence.
Yeah, and well, that's what this whole thing has been pointing out to everybody. This is
And that's the key. I don't think there's anyone saying, well, no one who's reasonable in thinking is saying no one's going to believe women anymore. No, people will always listen, because you never want to ignore an actual victim, but you got to have evidence. Now, I did want to thank you. You brought it up because I did want to reference this. Elaine Dumbshit is now out hitting all the news outlets, and she's continuing to spew the same lies she did in court. It's all bullshit, and she's going to end up getting herself fucking disbarred. She really is, because she is saying stuff that absolutely is the exact antithesis of what actually happened in court. We had all this evidence. Well, then why didn't you submit it? We all know why you didn't submit it, because you didn't get it in on time and the metadata was off. It was fabricated, and it was demonstrably fabricated, so you couldn't submit it in court. There are laws, there are rules of court in how you submit evidence. There's a chain of custody. You've got to be able to demonstrate it's legit. So if you don't submit it, there's a reason it's not submitted, and you're not supposed to know about it. You know, a bunch of evidence that Amber said, well, we had all this evidence. Yeah, that evidence was all the notes from your psychiatrist. And all those notes is an accounting of what you said. That's not evidence. That's just more of you lying. You need more than that to back it up.
Do you think that her lawyer is going to try getting a book deal?
Well, I can't see her continuing on as a lawyer. I can't see anyone hiring her again. She has demonstrated, when she doesn't even understand the basics of hearsay. I mean, by the end of this, Johnny had a great one. He was on the stand. He starts to answer a question. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. That's probably hearsay. See, I'm learning. And everyone's like, it's great that you're learning because her attorney sure hasn't. How long has she been practicing? Yeah, I don't see her getting a lot of business, a lot of call as a lawyer anymore. I think she's pretty much ended her career with this one. Yeah, it's freaking ridiculous. And then she comes out and says, well, all this does is that it means that when a woman, and she specifies women, not a victim, because we've just demonstrated in this case that a man could be a victim too. You know, everybody is equal under the law, regardless of their gender. So a victim is a victim, whether they're male or female. But she's saying women won't be believed unless they have videotape evidence of themselves getting beaten. No, that's not true. Although you kind of wonder why Amber didn't, because she had recordings of every other freaking thing. She took pictures of him sleeping on vacation and falling asleep with an ice cream cone in his hand. And she takes pictures of him slamming some cabinets around and getting a drink. She takes pictures of a stage setup of alcohol and cocaine, you know? So she's got plenty of evidence. She recorded every argument. She even recorded arguments that incriminated herself. You know, I didn't punch you, Johnny. I hit you. That's an admission to abuse. But she recorded that. No, the evidence isn't just a recording of you being beaten. It's the evidence of you going to the hospital and saying, this is what my husband did to me. And then having the police come in and take your statement. There was none of that. Zero. In fact, the one time that the police were called, they came out and they said, we don't see any evidence of domestic violence. And then they were called back 3 hours later after she'd messed the place up.
She's not a trial lawyer. She's supposedly proficient in settlements.
Yeah.
Interesting. So she doesn't bring things to trial.
That's not going to work for her anymore either, because the whole way you get a settlement is you threaten to go to court. Now everyone's going to say, fine, take me to court, because I know I'll walk all over you in court. I've seen how you are in court.
That was usually a classic bull thing. Like someone might be deciding to settle, but then the lawyer on the other side would piss off Bull and he'd be like, we're going to court.
Auditor Dread.
What?
That was a quote by me. I don't remember ever saying that. What context did I say that in? That's funny.
What? But she's trying. She's really
trying. I don't know. I have no idea.
At any rate.
Objection, relevance. Exactly. That's exactly right. Oh my gosh. It's ridiculous. So really, you have a lot of people that are starting to look, and honestly, these things are not existing in a vacuum here. This is also coming off the heels of all the pandemic stuff and everything that, and we joked about it, only half joking. Everything that was a conspiracy theory 2 years ago is coming out with evidence now. So now it's okay to believe it, even though back then it was, fake facts, and people are now starting to look at the fact checkers and going, yeah, that's bullshit too. People are smart enough and starting to wake up. I do find it funny that they know they can't believe the media about the local media about the pandemic, about Johnny Depp, about anything going on over here. But but we're going to believe everything they say about Russia and Ukraine. They're telling us the truth about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, part of the problem is that where are the political parties on this too, right? They're probably sort of in sync,
Don't
maybe.
even
I
get me
don't know.
started because both political parties are full of shit on all of this. Too many of the GOP are Republicans in name only. These neocons and these neoliberals
So my
are in the
impression is,
same
well,
fucking bed.
both political parties are agreeing. It must be true. That's probably what people are thinking.
No,
That's
that's
yes,
exactly no. That's the deep state, globalists.
yeah. But the article does end with the Depp versus Her trial was perhaps the first time in history that Americans were able to consume the facts at the same time as the media, allowing them to realize just how unreliable and
Yeah.
trustworthy the press can be. I've known this for years. To be honest with you, my wake up call was during a certain thing involving gaming that also ended in Gate, and I realized that the press was presenting falsehoods about the whole thing, and they still are to this day. But in fact, they keep thinking it's still a thing, which it isn't. It dissolved a while back, but
Yeah.
they keep resurrecting it. Oh, by the way, Anita Sarkeesian, she was very upset
God.
about the verdict. And she was
Of
saying,
course she
you know what
was.
her quote was something along the lines of, if a rich, privileged white woman can't be heard and listened to, what hope do the rest of us have? And everybody was going after because, of course, Johnny Depp.
Well,
They realized he was right.
it's really simple. I don't care if you're a white woman, a black woman, gay, trans, whatever you are. Okay, you tell the truth and back it up with some evidence, you're going to be believed. You lie, it's going to come out. I mean, that might be a little oversimplified. Maybe that's a little optimistic, but it tends to bear itself out. Our legal system isn't perfect, but generally, when you have a jury trial, most people can kind of use the brains. It still happens from time to time, and
It's funny, even her supporters were writing to her saying, "Look, I'm sorry, Anita. It's like this is not the hill for you to die on here.
no,
This is,
yeah,
this is
no, it's not
it,
that women
it's
won't be believed. Liars will not be believed.
it's
It's
clear that
really that simple. And look, and as I was watching the law tubes and whatnot, and that was the other great thing, right? A bunch of lawyers commenting on it. Some of them very, very right. Some of them very, very left. But they were all in agreement on the facts of the case. And they ended up, even though they may have come from, I'm kind of on the Johnny side, I'm kind of on the Amber side, whatever. By the end of the trial, everyone was solidly on Johnny's side because it was just very clear. And they were just trying to say, I'm trying to be as objective as possible. How could this still go against Johnny? But they're like, I can only give you odds. It's 90% Johnny, like 10% Amber, because anything could happen. You could have the one person on the jury that's just, a Sarkeesian type, who's just absolute, but the reality is that, I mean, and one of the attorneys, a black female attorney, I don't really know her politics, but
right.
you kind of make assumptions based on what someone says. She says, look, I've worked in this area of law for a very long time, and I can tell you, regardless of your opinion or your feelings, victims or people that call themselves victims lie in court all the time, especially in divorce cases, because they're trying to help their own case. It happens all the time. It is reality. You have to have a degree of skepticism. Whenever you hear it, you say, that's fine. I hear what you're saying. Show me the evidence. And that's reasonable.
It should be "F you, show me the evidence," right?
Yeah, well,
It's "F you, pay me." Remember that from the movie?
Fuck you, pay me. No, I mean there is something to it, and I even commented on that when we were doing the Goodfellas rewatch. Yeah, it sounds shitty, but it really is business. It's not just mafia business. It's just business. I hear what you're saying. I hear you're having some hard times, but you have an obligation. You need to pay me. If you don't pay me, you know what the consequences are. Well, it's the same kind of thing here. I understand you said that you're a victim of domestic violence. That's fine, and I sympathize with you. You're getting out of that circumstance. You're getting a divorce. That's a good thing. But if you want us to go after him for that crime, you need to back it up with evidence. We don't just take people and throw them in prison just because you call them a witch. Okay? That's just the way it goes in the modern court system.
Yes. Well, that's why they call these things a witch hunt.
Exactly.
All right, so we got some gaming news.
Yeah, you're gonna have to walk me through
Oh
this.
my
This is not
goodness.
the
Okay,
area.
for the love
You
of
know,
Mike. All right.
for the
Capcom.
love of Troy, not knowing what you're talking
I was
about.
gonna say for the love of Mike, which I guess okay. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, Capcom has finally revealed that Resident Evil 4 remake is real and will be launching on the PlayStation 5 in 2023. Though it
And this
seems
is a yay good thing.
it probably
Okay. Okay.
though
Yay.
it's we'll see. We have to see how the
Although
finished product
remake
turns out.
always worries me. You know.
Yeah, and with games, it's mixed though, because one could argue most games are remakes when they're sequels, but this is a full-on remake of Resident Evil 4. This was a very popular game back. It originally originated on the Nintendo GameCube. Just want to throw that out there, PlayStation people. Was on a Nintendo system first. In fact, it was supposed to be a Nintendo exclusive, and then Capcom stabbed Nintendo in the back. And the director said if this shows up on anything but a GameCube, the director of the project, the creator of the project, he said he would cut his own head off. He didn't cut his own head off, but he was adamant that the game was specifically being made just for the Nintendo GameCube. Whatever, that's the past. We're in modern times. It's coming out. Resident Evil 4 remake. Importance of Resident Evil 4 cannot be understated. It is considered one of the greatest action games of all time and helped revitalize the Resident Evil series, allowing it to move away from the stagnating survival horror roots into something that was more dynamic. I liked the survival horror roots, but I'm not gonna, I'll calm down. I'm not saying it's a bad game.
This was like a zombie first person shooter, right?
Well, they made a point in this game. There weren't going to be zombies in it. They made a point. So you're dealing with these infected villagers, and I'm not an expert on this game. And there are elements of the Thing in there. You remember John Carpenter's The Thing? Like there's stuff inside them.
Horror, that kind of
stuff. Yeah. Capcom had been remaking lots of Resident Evil titles over the past years, with both Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 being revived on modern platforms. Resident Evil 4 has been ported to so many systems, including modern ones like Resident Evil 4 VR on Oculus Quest 2. Yeah, the one that was censored. I know. But there was a question.
Wait, it was censored? Why? In what way was it censored?
We already covered this, dude, didn't we? On Oculus Rift, it was all the stuff like the president's daughter when you rescue her, she flirts with the main character. That's a no-no. Or suggestive romantic comments. I guess that's harassment now in games.
Oh God.
We covered this a while back. You probably forgot about it because it's Oculus Rift, and who cares? But
right.
Anyway, but actually, I'm glad this game comes out because apparently this will make the Oculus Rift version moot because Resident Evil 2 Remake is also coming into PlayStation VR too. So you want to play the old Resident Evil 4 on Oculus, or you want to play it on your PlayStation VR 2? Huh? I don't know what that is, but anyway, I don't know because I don't play PlayStation. PlayStation had a VR thing you could put on, and certain games worked with it, like a Resident Evil 7. Since that game was first person, you could play it with the VR glasses, and apparently it was fairly terrifying with the VR glasses. But the trailer featured brief glimpses of protagonist Leon Kennedy as he infiltrates the mysterious rural hamlet in the pursuit of Ashley Graham, the daughter of the United States president. The visuals have been redone in the style of previous Resident Evil remakes. Okay, and that being said, it remains to be seen how much will change in Resident Evil 4. Given that the previous revisits essentially adapted the older style of Resident Evil series gameplay to one closer to that of Resident Evil 4. This is true. They, like with the Resident Evil 2 remake, they kind of made an over-shoulder game like Resident Evil 4. So I guess they're going to go... when it debuted on the Nintendo GameCube, Resident Evil 4 was an early pioneer of what would become the default over-the-shoulder perspective of third-person action games. Its faster, more combat-orientated play also pushed the series in a more action-based direction from subsequent entries. I've heard that this is going to be that this new one's going to be creepier than the original. That's what people have said, but do you think they'll remake 5 and 6? I feel like those two are weaker titles, but it's strange that they're remaking and making sequels. Ashley was over 18 and flirted with Leon, which he declined. Yes, I know. It's ridiculous. She was an adult. There's nothing wrong with it. I think the Spanish guy you run into in the game when he sees Ashley, he makes a comment about ballistic missiles, which of course they censored that the Oculus Rift because you know what that's Never mind.
Yes, I get it.
I didn't know the support we were getting was going to be ballistics, he says. And of course, she yells at him, calling him rude. And they took his line out. So then when she's acting all angry at him in the remake, we don't know why, in the Oculus version, we don't know why she's so angry
Yeah,
because
now
it
she's
took
just
out the point.
racist, right?
Well, yeah, that or yeah. She's just being rude to him for no reason. Where actually, no, he made a rude comment to her. It's not like the game was saying it was right for this character to make the rude comment. That was just part of his character. Plus, I'm sure that's the worst thing they have to worry about when there are hordes of infected villagers coming after them.
Right.
It's just ridiculous. Code Veronica needs a remake more than 5 and 6, probably. You know why they're remaking Resident Evil 4? Because Resident Evil 4 is one of the most popular games in the series. I knew they were going to remake Resident Evil 2. Probably if they do another one after 4, they'll remake the first one again, which will be the second remake they've done of the first one. But I suspect they'll probably go back to the first one at some point. Resident Evil 4 remake, though, might be good. I'm not going to play it till I own a proper next-gen console, though, so maybe a little while, because this is probably going to take place. You're probably going to need it either a PlayStation 5 or a high-end PC or a Xbox Series X. Do you know what any of these things are? You know what a high-end PC is, don't you?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay. Do you have a high-end PC? It doesn't. You can play Quake on anything. You can play Quake on anything, so you can still play Quake on your PC if you want to play Quake. We have old school gaming news tonight too.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I originally was going to cut this article from tonight's stream, but I think we were running light on stories, so we decided to throw it back in. Sega Genesis Mega Drive Mini 2 will include Sega CD games. Do you know what a Sega Genesis is?
Yes.
Game console popular in the early to mid 90s. Main competitor with the Super Nintendo. My brother had one. I loved it. I had a Super Nintendo. It was basically the console wars in my house because when you're a kid, you can't afford both consoles usually. So whatever one you have, you're going to cherish and you're going to scream and make fun of the competition. And that's what happened back in the day. Years back, they released a Sega Genesis Mini because Nintendo had released an NES Classic and a Super Nintendo Classic. So Sega figured, well, let's do one for the Sega Genesis. And it was an incredible little mini console. You could hook it up to your high definition television. Came with 40 games plus 2 bonus games, making it 42 games. You got 42 games, and it was $79.99. Came with the 2 controllers. And if you think about it, back in the day, those games would have cost you $50 each. So that's a pretty good markdown, right?
Yeah.
And it had a lot of the Genesis library, and I love this device. And the cool thing was you could change the regions. Like if you wanted to play the games in English, it'd be the North American games. If you change it to like Japanese or French, you'd get like the European versions or the Japanese versions.
Huh.
And sometimes they were very different. And it was neat because you could play the different versions of the same game from all around the world. And I even they released 3 different variants of this mini console. And in Japan, it's called the Mega Drive. So they released the Mega Drive over there, the Mega Drive Mini over there. And then they released a miniature version in Asian markets, which I assume was to sell to, I guess, China and Korea. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing was I bought the Korean variant and it had different games on it, but I was able to switch the language to English. So all the games are in the American versions. So it's like I got a second mini console out of that. So I love these devices. It brings you back. And I kept saying, I wish they'd release a Sega Genesis Mini 2 model like the second Genesis model that came out, and they could put Sega CD games on it. This is what they're doing. But there's some bad news here.
Uh-oh.
Sega will release another micro console with games built into it. A Sega Mega Drive Mini 2, aka the Sega Genesis Mini 2, will debut in Japan on October 27th. A worldwide release isn't confirmed yet. No. However, when the system does appear, it will include a mix of over 50 games from the Mega Drive, Sega CD, and other sources. This is why I'm a little worried about this. I have watched videos subsequent from them. They've a lot of the gaming YouTubers I listen to, like Matt Little Pixel, he's a guy I watch for gaming news. He was translating a Famitsu interview with the creators, and they were saying, it's kind of funny that this right now is Japan only, considering that the North American versions and the European versions outsold the Japanese version of the Sega Genesis, the first mini console you put out. And the guys making it said, right now we're focused on the Japanese market. We do plan to release a version of this overseas and in Europe at some point, though. I'm a little worried though because every other time with any of these mini consoles, they've always been global releases. And I'm a little nervous that maybe they're holding off. It could be because, electronics are maybe hard to come by now because of the chip shortage and maybe other variants, supply chain thing. Maybe they just want to focus on Japan now and release the European and American versions later on. Or maybe they're worried about where the economies are going in Europe and North America in the future. Maybe it's not going to be worth it to them to release it over here by the time they're able to. I don't know. Maybe this is just me fretting over nothing. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean,
is this thing going to go from set $80 to $800 if they wait too long? I don't know.
Well, could be. What I was going to say is I don't know enough about the details of why, but just speculating from what you've told me about, how in the past they've been global releases. If there's a couple of countries that for whatever reason right now they can't market to or whatever, and they want to do a worldwide release, maybe they're holding off so that they can do it as one big thing, not have to update later or something. I don't know.
Well, it's possible. I know with the Sega Genesis Mini 1 in Europe, a little give history lesson. It's called Mega Drive all over the world. It couldn't be called Mega Drive in North America because of a copyright thing, because I guess someone else had something over here called Mega Drive.
Mm-hmm.
So some other tech company had the device called Mega Drive, so they called it the Sega Genesis here in North America, in the United States and Canada. In Europe, though, it was called the Mega Drive, and I noticed that when the Sega Genesis Mini came out, both the Genesis Mini and the Mega Drive European version had the same games. Except if you bought it in Europe, you got the European covers of the games as opposed to the American covers.
Gotcha.
But it was essentially the same listing, which is kind of funny though, because if you looked at the listing for the Sega Genesis Mini 1, you could tell that they were having to cater to both American and European tastes. So some games that we were kind of puzzled, why are these on here? Well, this is because this series was popular in Europe, whereas something like Earthworm Jim was very popular in the United States. So of course they're going to have that on there to placate the Americans, but they'll have something else on there to make the Europeans happy. Do you understand? So
Yeah.
it was interesting. But I'm not saying this thing isn't coming out. We just haven't gotten a formal announcement yet. I'm just a little worried that we're going to miss out on this because of situations going on. What do you think? You don't know?
Yeah, I mean, interesting to me, but I don't have a dog in this hunt.
You should, though. I don't know if it comes out. I may have to badger you to get yourself one. I don't know. And you're going to say it's not
unless it's one of those things like the PS5 or whatever it was that
what
no one could get their hands on because it was so scarce and rare and or whatever
this may end up being that, because I have a suspicion if it comes out over here, it's not going to be like the Sega Genesis Mini 1, even though it was $79.99, that thing would go on sale for as low as $40, and you could just pick it up at a Best Buy for $40 sometimes. But this thing, if it does come out here, it's going to be rare. I am going to say this: putting CD-based games on one of these mini consoles is a lot more difficult than putting the cartridge-based games, because apparently the CD games were much larger, much larger memory. But here are some of the games announced for it: Bonanza Brothers. You know what that is?
No.
Okay. Fantasy Zone. Fantasy Zone, which was never out on the Genesis or Mega Drive. They're remaking it for this version. It's a bonus game. Mansion of Hidden Souls. My brother had that on the Sega CD. It was kind of a creepy game. You would go around this haunted house. Potful Mail, which was a great action RPG. I'll say this. While I would be tempted to get the Japanese version to change the regions to get the English versions, provided that's even an option with this version, I don't think they'll allow that with the English languages of these games because they're so different. And of course, I don't know if there are royalties you have to pay for the voice actors or other license issues. So I don't know. Sylpheed. That's like the Sega CD Answer the Star Fox. Sonic the Hedgehog CD. You know Sonic the Hedgehog, right? He had a CD game. Okay. Virtual Racing. Virtual Racing is known for being a very expensive Genesis cartridge, because it basically did polygonal graphics on the Sega Genesis, but the cartridge was like maxed out to the point where it was like $100 cartridge when it got released. It was almost like having, I don't know, it was almost beyond what the Genesis was able to do, because you know how 3D games were becoming popular around that time in the late 90s. Just okay. Anyway, let's move on.
Okay.
If it gets an official announcement, I will say anything. Does anyone in the chat care? Give me a thumbs up if you care. You know what? We're moving on because I think we have other things.
Yeah, I suspect we got some gamers in the chat.
No one cares. I'm the only one that cares this isn't coming out over here. That's why I was going to cut it. No one cares about the 60-bit era. I mentioned Sylphid, and they're like,
well, you brought it up.
That game was made before I was born. That's what the chat's saying.
Now we can find out, who else might be interested. So we'll know going forward.
I don't even know if this thing's coming out in North America.
Well, look, Mr. Mastic says with RE. Oh no, that was about the.
It's not about Red. They want the new thing. They're like,
I was gonna say RE2 and 3. It sounded like he was talking about droids from Star Wars. So
listen, Popful Mel. I remember the voice acting in that game. I remembered like one of the bad guys was screaming out, "Mithril Garden, give me power," or something like that.
I love Auditor Dreda. Agent Boomer, I care that you care.
No one gives a shit about this. They're not going to release this over here. I'm going to be screwed again. Whatever. Can't have nice things. Let's talk about what the kids care about. Old games are not my thing. Well,
there you go.
I'll have some patience, but you're missing out on some great old RPGs. Old games are good. They're not that old. Resident Evil 4 is old now. Just letting you know.
I stabbed the troll with the nasty knife. It's dark. You're liable to be eaten by a grue.
I'm still on your next headline. Yes, I know. Okay. Researchers' avatar was sexually assaulted on a Metaverse platform owned by Meta, making this the latest victim of sexual abuse on Meta's platforms, Watchdog says. This is a long article, too. I'm going to try to speed it up because we're already over time. I may replace a word that rhymes with grape with the word violated. This will probably still get this thing demonetized on Rumble and letting the Rumble bots know ahead of time. Okay, so
yeah, I have a hard time with the whole definition of assault.
Okay, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for
environment.
I'm waiting for Mark Zuckerberg to be hauled before the Senate and have to testify about what's going on in this Metaverse.
Apparently, some states are trying to sue gun manufacturers. So if that's how it's going to go, then the tech companies are going to get sued for the assaults that happen online.
Let me read this to you. A research entered the Metaverse wanting to study users' behavior on Meta's social networking platform Horizon World. But within an hour after she donned her Oculus virtual reality headset, she says her avatar was violated in the virtual space. Metaverse, another cesspool of toxic content, a new report published by nonprofit advocacy group Some of Us on Tuesday details the researchers' violent encounter in Meta's Horizon World. According to Some of Us's account, users invited to the researcher to a private party on Horizon World earlier this month. Users in the same room then asked her to disable a setting that prevented others from getting within 4 feet of her. So I guess that you can prevent other avatars, or I guess people, we should say, because this is the Metaverse, right? And you don't have to have the other people getting in within 4 feet of you if you don't want to. The report linked to a video that the group says shows what happened to the researcher's avatar from her perspective. So I guess she disabled the 4 feet barrier. In the video, a male avatar is seen getting very close to her while another male avatar stands nearby watching. A bottle of what appears to be alcohol is then passed between the two avatars per the 28-second video. 2 male voices are heard making lewd comments in the video. You can check that out in the article if you so desire. There's a link to it. In a part of the video, Some of Us opted not to share but describe. The researcher was led into a private room where she was violated by a user who kept telling her to turn around so he could do it from behind while users outside the window could see, while another user in the room watched and passed around a vodka bottle. Per the report, I'm assuming this was a virtual vodka bottle. Even though it happened in virtual reality, the incident left the researcher disorientated. She said in the report the researcher noted her controller vibrated when the male avatars touched her, resulting in a physical sensation that was a result of what she was experiencing online. One part of my brain was like, WTF is happening. The other part was like, this isn't a real body. And another part was like, this is important research, she said in the report. Some of us researchers also reported experiencing homophobic and racial slurs in the Horizon World and said they witnessed gun violence on the platform. We think these incidents show that Meta needs to pause its headlong rush into the Metaverse It has shown it's unable to moderate existing platforms, causing serious harm to individuals and communities. In Horizon Worlds,
it's the equivalent of a frickin' video game. Get the frick over it.
There is a similar subplot in that movie, Gamer. Okay, let's see here. It's not funny. I'm not laughing.
It actually is.
It is not funny.
People that react like this, it's like, you know what? You can turn it off at any time. It's not like a real.
Oh, so it's her fault. Okay.
Yeah, because it's all happening in her mind. It's not even really happening. You understand what the term virtual means, right? Virtual means not real. I mean, let's get down to brass tacks here. At any time, okay. So if you are being assaulted in real life, okay, that's terrifying because someone physically has control of you and you can't get away. You can fight, you can try, but maybe you can't. Maybe you're overpowered. If it's in a computer game, something's happening you don't like,
unplug it.
Flip a switch. You flip a fucking switch. And you suddenly get away instantly. It's freaking ridiculous. What are we even talking about here?
Oh, I already hate the. Oh, you're sharing a link. When did you
I am, this? Yeah. When you get an opportunity, I'd love for you to put up that I shared.
I already hate the. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No. Read Auditor Dreads.
I already hate the metaverse without this article. Also, fun fact: the internet has weirdos. Didn't a reporter had the same experience in GTI Online?
Yes, yeah, this is
no. That reporter's name was Sam Mag. She was working on that Star Wars game for a bit. Remember?
This is no different from the stuff that happens in MMORGs all the time. You know, it's. People act stupid, you ignore them. This is not something that is literally, really physically happening to you. It's all in your role-playing head. Here's a great example of this kind of stuff. This is the kind of shit that this is how the world ends, okay? We're going to have people who don't want to actually have kids are going to play at being kids. They're going to create kids in a virtual simulator. They're going to feed them, pretend to cuddle them and all this kind of stuff. And if the computer decides your fake baby dies, they're going to go into depression over it.
Rise of the Tamagotchi kids, virtual children that play with you, cuddle you, and even look like you will be commonplace with years and could help combat overpopulation. AI expert. I'm so sick of this overpopulation BS, but yeah, that's a topic for another time. We're going to head into a demographic winter. It's been reported, but that's getting us off topic. Rise of the Tamagotchi kids. You know what? It's almost like that. You can have a virtual girlfriend like the guy in that Blade Runner movie, right? Remember that?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
that movie had very good commentary on that whole concept.
You really have to think through what that is, right? I mean, it's like this whole idea of fantasy and role playing and you know whatnot. Let's get right down to brass tacks. You know, before there was internet, before there was even a written language, there was fantasizing and doing things by yourself. Okay. This is just a more advanced way of doing it. And everyone has known it's possible, it's fun, you do it, but it's not real. You know? I don't know. We now have a generation of people that are growing up not being able to understand the difference between reality and fiction. And I'll just point out Multiverse of Madness. Multiverse of Madness perfectly exemplifies exactly what I just shared with that screen grab and what we're talking about in this metaverse thing, where people think that these fictions that we create in our fantasies are actually real. It's the same problem we're having with the gender identities and all this other stuff. People believe that the way I feel, the way I think, my fantasy is that's my reality. And you've got to respect my reality. There's no such thing as objective reality. And this is how society spirals out of control.
If it catches on.
Really, in a way, this is no different than what Amber Heard is doing. She probably fully believes that she's a victim of domestic violence. That's her reality. That's her truth, right?
We're getting dangerous.
And we're all sitting here going, no, we're trying to get at objective truth. What is the truth? Not your truth, the truth. Now we've got someone saying, I was assaulted on the metaverse. And everyone's sitting here going, that's fiction. That didn't really happen.
We're getting dangerously close to existence. That Cronenberg predicted the future. I need to watch Existence. I know it came out around the same time as The Matrix. They were compared to each other when they were out. So, okay. Meta, you excited about Meta?
Not really, no.
Sheryl Sandberg leaving Meta Platforms, formerly Facebook, because company investigation burnout. Okay, I'll read this real quick. Wall Street Journal is reporting that Meta Platform CEO Sheryl Sandberg may have been prompted in part to give up her position because of the company investigation into her activities, including a review of her use of corporate resources to help plan her upcoming wedding. As of May, the review was ongoing, the Wall Street Journal said. The investigation is also looking into allegations Sandberg pressured the UK's Daily Mail to shelve an article about Sandberg's former boyfriend, Activision Blizzard Inc. CEO Bobby Kotick, and a 2014 temporary restraining order against him. None of this has anything to do with her personal decision to leave, said Caroline Nolan, a Meta spokeswoman, to the Wall Street Journal. She earlier said that the Kotick matter had been resolved. The Wall Street Journal's story also allowed that Sandberg has been telling people that she feels burned out and that she has become a punching bag for the company's problems.
Well, whenever someone publicly says why they're leaving a company, you can believe maybe a portion of it, not all of it. And when she says, she's becoming a punching bag for the company's problems, focus in on that part about the company having problems. We're talking about this whole metaverse thing, and this is not anything new. This is not, some cutting edge technology, brilliant, whatever. This is no different than that Second Life or whatever. That's been around since the 90s. It's a way for people to go and interact in an artificial construct with avatars. And I mean, there's some people that have videos of the stuff that they do out there, and it's some of it's really very funny, especially the ones that their avatars are driven by those the biofeedback things. They got those suits, and as they move, their avatar moves. And then sometimes you'll have somebody that has like a Spider-Man avatar in the thing.
Yeah.
And he's hanging upside down from his ceiling. So the avatar is actually hanging upside down, and they're going, how is this guy actually doing that? Because they don't see what he's doing in the real world. It's kind of funny. But again, yeah, it's just chat rooms with an augmented reality element to it is all this is.
Do you think that this is some kind of a scam? Meta.
Yeah, it's hard to put that fine a point on it, because if you want to be literal, yeah, what they're peddling is not what they're actually, it's like sea monkeys, right? Was sea monkeys a scam? They certainly weren't monkeys, right? And they weren't as cool as the illustrations that you saw in the comic book. But you really were buying, these dehydrated, brine shrimp, that really do come to life when you put water on them. Not what you think you're getting, but it is something, right? And this metaverse is not what's being peddled, but anybody who goes into it knowing what it is what it is, I mean, it's the same thing as the NFTs and all this other stuff, where they're trying to create a new universe to exploit. An
So
artificial world where they can charge you for whatever.
because they've exploited this world beyond what they can really do.
No,
Okay.
no, not really. But they think they can get a leg up on something new. And everyone's going, everyone that's interested in that, sure, go ahead, throw your money into it. It's if it's value. What do I always say? Everything is as valuable as someone is willing to pay for it, right? So if you believe that NFT has value, go ahead and buy it if it's something you want. If you believe you want to be a part of this interactive experience called the Metaverse, go do. Transfer your money into in-world currency and do whatever you want, right? I mean, I play Star Trek Online, and I have put some money into it to get some things in the game, and I realized that they could shut that server down at any time, and I'm out. I don't own anything there, but the little amount of real world money I spent on it has been worth it to me. I've enjoyed myself.
Gotcha.
But I also live in a real world where I do real work and make real money to buy real food and keep myself alive. Okay, that's my primary purpose, right? Well, I don't know, man. I just see
you can see what? No, go ahead, finish your sentence.
I just see so many of and it's mostly younger people that want to live in a fantasy world and don't want to deal with reality, and they're all and in some ways it's no different than the hippies in the 60s that just wanted to tune out, and I don't remember what that old phrase was, but they just wanted to get high and have nothing to do with, everything that's going on around them. And eventually they grew up and realized I either die or I start living,
Yeah.
And I think the same thing is happening with these people that are doing the metaverse and all this other, I don't care if it's a computer simulation or your gender identity or, you believe you're an otherkin, you think you're a unicorn. I don't care. Whatever it is. Eventually, reality has a way of kicking you in the balls that you don't believe you have or that you imagine you have.
Or just place your vibrating controller and it'll shock you or something in the wall. I'm kidding. I don't know.
I don't know. See, when you mentioned that thing about the vibrating controller, I'm like,
dude,
this could be consensual, right? You got to actually put it someplace to get something out of it, right?
Could you imagine like virtual reality, like S&M things, and you could get bashed in various parts of your body by electronic implements?
Dude,
I'm telling you, I can get on the ground floor.
There's going to come a point where there's going to be an S&M simulator where you get to feel it without the actual damage. I mean, I could go off on another tangent about how so much of technology has been driven by pornography. VHS, DVD, computer games, they all started out being funded originally for porn. It's actually true. I am not making this up.
I'm not saying you are. Anyway, let's end on a high note here. Hopefully the metaverse will crumble, but I'm staying out of it regardless.
Yeah.
Beavis and Butt-Head do the Universe Drops film trailer for Paramount Plus.
This is another low.
You think it's so low? Actually, I'm going to say this. You know what might get me into the metaverse? I'll get a virtual Sega Genesis Mini 2 because I can't get one in the real world, but they'll entice me with a virtual one in the metaverse, right?
Actually, there's something to be said for that, right? Again, I'm going to say the same thing I always say about owning physical media. If you get something online, like I just said about Star Trek Online, you put real world money into a virtual thing, you don't own it and they can take it away from you at any time. However, if you can't get it in the real world, right, and you're willing to pay to play in a virtual setting like that, they can't get the PS whatever out to you, but they can give it to you in a virtual setting. Maybe it's worth it. Yes.
Oh, this is making my head spin. I don't want to think about this anymore.
It is a marketing option, is what I'll say. As long as you understand, you don't own that thing because it's not a physical thing, and they can take it away from you at any time. As long as you realize that, then enjoy it while you can.
The Beavis and Butt-Head trailer is hilarious. I'll give the movie a look.
I was never a big fan of Beavis and Butthead to
Oh my
begin with.
goodness! What are you doing to me? I think I was the exact right age group that they were targeted at back in the day. They're back. Don't tell your parents. Of course not. Don't tell your parents. Don't tell your teachers. If you wear the Beavis and
M-
Butthead shirt to school, the principal will yell at you. Nothing
Most
that ever
people's
happened to me.
parents that are Beavis and Butthead, parents of Beavis and Butthead fans, those fans have now grown up, so they're not going to bother telling their parents because their parents won't give a shit.
It's a joke. That's the point. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe is making its way to Paramount Plus later this month. MTV Entertainment Studios announced on Thursday the movie is a sequel to Beavis and Butthead Do America from 1996, along with the news that the film from creator Mike Judge will drop exclusively on the streaming service on June 23rd. An official trailer was released showing the iconic cartoon buffoons are up to their old antics, but in a new space. That's right. Somehow, some way, Beavis and Butthead are going to find themselves headed into space in 1998 and subsequently from there to the future of 2022, only to discover a very different world. They quickly find themselves of interest to the NSA, the governor of Texas, and a highly intelligent version of themselves from a parallel universe. The movie is one of the multiple Beavis and Butthead projects that Paramount Plus has in the works. Since the beloved animated franchise was revived in mid 2020, the animated series about the lovable losers was revived with a 2-season order that included multiple spin-offs and movies. While the series was slated to return to Comedy Central, it was moved to Paramount Plus earlier this year as Paramount Global, like other conglomerates, continued to prioritize building up its subscription platforms. Both the show and the movies joined the library of more than 200 episodes of the original MTV comedy about the two rocking slackers on the service. Naturally, Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe is written, directed, and stars Judge. The Paramount Plus film is executive produced by Judge Lou Morton and Mick Rotenberg and Chris Pernosky, Shannon Pernosky, Ben Kalina, and Antonio Canabio for Titmouse. If Homer Simpson heard the word Titmouse, he would giggle. Anyway, what did I say though? Beavis and Butthead. For love of Pete, what is with you people? Beavis and Butthead never looked interesting for me, but that's okay. You don't have to alter it for my taste. They're not going to alter it for your taste. Okay, I have a question for you, Mr. Pacelli. Did you like the movie Office Space?
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you like Idiocracy?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay. Did you like the television show King of the Hill?
Not really.
You didn't like King of the Hill?
No.
Oh no.
I saw some episodes that were kind of okay, but no.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's just the Mike Judge humor. I think Mike Judge's hilarious. I remember catching the Beavis and Butthead shorts. They first aired on MTV's Liquid Television.
You know what it is? I'm sure that I probably would like the humor if I could give it a chance, but I couldn't get past the two losers sitting around, making fart jokes,
watching the TV.
Watching
There would be
I'm
episode.
Cornholio. I need
Yes,
stuff for my bunghole.
That's like his alternate personality.
It's
Yes.
like, oh my god, this is so
It's
juvenile.
funny.
So
That's the point. It's juvenile and disgusting. South Park is worse though. People always act like, oh, Beavis is the worst thing ever. No, South Park was pushed the envelope.
South Park is another one that I didn't really like. There are clips from it that I love, but I think all the stuff in between is just
like
disgusting.
the Safe Space musical number. Have you seen that one? It's a
no,
musical about
I don't
being
think
in your
I have.
safe
I
space.
probably would.
You
like
get a
it.
kick out of it because it's basically just attacking the college students.
I mean, someone tried showing me this bit about Mr. Hanky, the Christmas poo, and I'm like, this is just disgusting. I don't see this as funny, But there are some things that they did do that were quite humorous. So I'm not completely opposed to it.
Do you know in the Safe Space musical number, there's a horrible villain that's trying to get into their lives and interfere with their safe spaces, and that villain's name is Reality. It's a joke.
I get it.
And he looks like, and it's like, no, he's just telling you how it is and not how you want it to be. It's like, King of the Hill is great. Okay. No, I liked Beavis and Butthead. Now, granted, I always liked Michael Judd's commentary because I remember buying Beavis and Butthead on DVD when it came out on DVD, the Mike Judge collection. And he says on this, 1/3 of this show I loved and approve of. 1/3 of the show was okay. The other third was crap. and he said this collection is made up of the first 2/3. He basically said there were some episodes made that were kind of,
Okay.
kind of
It
not good.
sounds like probably how I would, if I actually watched the whole thing, I probably would have come to the same conclusion. Yeah.
But I don't know, they had some funny bits though, like when they have to go to their neighbor and they're looking for work to get money, so they say, "All right, why don't you paint my garage or something?" And then like they end up getting high off the paint fumes and then paint his cat's butt and then like run the mower through his bushes and stuff. And then they come back the following week and they get our job and says, "Don't I know you?" And he says, "No, those were different guys that did that stuff." And I forgot what. I don't know if they end up setting his garage on fire. So I don't. It was you know. Do you remember Daria at all? She got her start on Beavis and Butthead. She had her own show. Okay, you didn't watch the MTV cartoons?
Not really. No.
Okay.
The only thing I ever watched MTV for was for music videos. When they stopped doing music videos, I lost interest.
I like the cartoons. For a bit, they had these really cool edgy cartoons.
You know what's funny, everybody? We call him Agent Boomer, but he looks at me like I'm the boomer.
This is where our age discrepancy is coming into play, because I was in high school when Beavis and Butthead was a thing, and when Liquid Television was a thing when they first started. So, and I was the exact age category that series was being marked at. And the teachers,
I already had a job and was dating and actually getting close to getting married.
Yeah, so it was an age thing, but I was a big fan of them, and I used to call them the boys. I'm glad the boys are back in town, and I want to watch this movie. I will watch it when it comes out, and it looks cool. I just cannot get behind that type of protagonist. Here's the deal with Beavis and Butthead: you're supposed to be laughing at them, not laughing with them. Yeah, and the clever thing about the show was Mike Judd made a point that he makes fun of everybody. You have the hard ass, gym teacher, and then you have the hippie, more leftist teacher, and he makes fun of both. Do you understand? No one was spared from getting ridiculed on that show. Actually, the funny thing though about the gym teacher, I think there's one episode where they're doing a fight thing, and he says, "Kick me in the Jimmy." He gets all angry, says, "Kick me in the Jimmy." And he kicks in the Jimmy, and then like it looks like he's about to scream. He says, "Do it again, harder!" And it's like, because that's how much of a badass he is. You can kick him. Okay, never mind. This isn't resonating with you at all. I'm gonna watch the movie. I will look forward to it. So, those of you who are in the know and want to,
one positive thing I'll say about it is it really does sound like this is an example of a show that's got followers, that's going to do something, and doesn't really give a crap what anyone thinks about it. I mean, and good for them.
Oh, look at this! Big Al mentions The Head. That was another MTV cartoon. Remember that? That was part of MTV's Oddities, and the other show that they made with that was an adaptation of the comic book The Max. Does The Max ring a bell to you at all?
Mm-mm.
Okay, very nice. It's like a graphic novel come to life. Very good animated cartoon series.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. All right. I guess that's it.
Yep.
Okay. It's late anyway. Okay. Thank you all for tuning in. Do you have any comments left to say about this?
Nope. You want to do a quick rundown of the week?
Yeah. Tuesday, I will be on Mr. Matchstick's channel. We will be continuing our discussion of Mobile Suit Gundam 0079, the original anime masterpiece series. And I got 3 episodes left of that to watch, so I'm looking forward to that. And Wednesday, I'll be on Soundtrack's Birdman, which we will finally be doing Predator, so look forward to that. Wrapping up Arnold month in June from May, but it should be interesting. And that brings us to Friday. What are you doing Friday?
Friday, we are going to have a very special guest behind the bar, Horizon Talker. He's going to be talking to us about his writing, his publishing, what it's like to be self-published. And I'm gonna, if you guys are not already following him, I'm gonna explain to you exactly why you should be. And I think that's going to be a good show. And we're just gonna hang out at the bar and drink and talk is what we're gonna do.
Looking forward to it.
Yep. Okay. And then Saturday over on Netter's Network for Retro Cinema, we will be taking in the Blues Brothers boys band from Chicago. It's going to be a great one.
Blues Brothers, yeah, that has many actors in it, even smaller roles like Carrie Fisher.
Orange Whip,
She's in it.
Orange Whip, 3 Orange Whips. Maybe that's what I'll. Maybe that's
Tell
what
me,
I'll.
what about
I'll
what
be,
about Some of Your Wife? Remember that one?
Pardon me.
Some of Your Wife, wasn't that a bit from Blues Brothers, right?
How much?
For your
How
wife?
much? How much for the? How much for the women? The
Yes, I
girls.
remember that.
Your wives. How much for them? Yeah. Wrong glass, sir. Fill it up.
Oh my goodness.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And that'll bring us back around to Sunday.
Yeah. Okay. And Sunday, Geeky Geezers again. I will be here next week, so tune in. And it's funny, Deleted Scenes mentions Eon Flux. I'll say this. If you're going to check out any of those MTV cartoons, Matchstick, try Eon Flux. That might interest you.
I have heard of Eon Flux.
Yes.
And it has been recommended to me, as has much anime. So,
well, it's not really anime though, even though it was made by a Korean American named Peter Chung, who used to work on Rugrats.
But it was kind of in that anime style, right?
Sort of. It was in that. It was sort of in its own style, but it's funny because an anime studio actually hired him to do the character designs for one of the animes in Japan because they were impressed with them. It was called, which was an anime adaptation of the story of Alexander the Great.
Interesting.
Which was very interesting, and Peter Chung went to all the trouble of studying Greek designs and Greek architecture, was fascinated by it. And then the producer says, "What are you doing? We want you to make it all quasi-futuristic looking like you did in Eon Flux." So he had to throw it all out the window and make it look more like this futuristic. Even though it's still taking place in the past, it had different designs. It's still an interesting series to watch.
Interesting.
Okay. They did the whole Gordian knot bit in an episode, which was interesting. All right. I'll catch y'all later. Y'all have a good night. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.